Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the first session of the Leadership Dialogue of the United Nations Environment Assembly. As you know, this year's Leadership Dialogue focuses on, and I quote, contribution of the environmental dimension of sustainable development to building a resilient and inclusive post-pandemic world, end of quote. Today's dialogue will provide leaders and ministers of environment a platform for sharing their vision and ongoing environmental initiatives, which will contribute to building a resilient and inclusive post-pandemic world. Before we start, I would like to invite all of you to watch a short video which will help us to visualize the impact of the pandemic on our planet. For your attention, and thank you to the Communication Division of UNEP for such an inspiring video. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I now have the pleasure to invite Ms. Andrea Meza Murillo, Minister of Environment and Energy of Costa Rica and Vice President of UNEP Bureau, to set the scene. Excellency Murillo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Excellencies. Do you hear me?
We hear you well, Minister. Do you have a camera?
I do. I'm just to check if this is working well. Now?
Yes, we see you very well, and we hear you. Please go ahead, Minister.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening to everyone. Good morning to all the colleagues at UNEP 5, Inger, Joce, and all the team, and Excellencies, all protocols observed. Thank you very much, Minister Rotevatum, for leading this online first session of UNEP 5. I am honored as Vice President of UNEP 5 to set the scene for this leadership dialogues. I wish to thank all the delegations. Even though we had some hard times negotiating, we managed to approve a message for this UNEP 5, which is vital for multilateralism. In this high-level dialogue, we need to address a systemic theme: the contribution of the environmental dimension of sustainable development to build a resilient and inclusive post-pandemic world. I will start by saying that the environmental dimension must be a central part of the recovery plans and that we, ministers of environment, need to play an active role in this process. Excellencies, the current COVID-19 pandemic has revealed our society's vulnerabilities and has exacerbated inequalities. The pandemic caused an estimated of 34.3 million people to fall below the extreme poverty line in 2020, with an additional 130 million people possibly joining the ranks of those living in extreme poverty by 2030. By seeing this COVID pandemic, we can foresee the impacts that climate change and biodiversity loss can lead us to. Certainly, to new scenarios of significant shocks, generating more social turbulence, migrations, and more socioeconomic constraints. This is a decisive decade to address this health planetary crisis in an integrated manner. If current trends on habitat destruction and emission continues increasing by 2030, it will become impossible to achieve the 1.5 goal and reverse biodiversity loss. As ministers of environment, we need to show our political will to build resilient societies. We need to demonstrate that we can contribute to our country's economic recovery processes. This only will occur if we change our traditional mode of work, leave silos aside, and start operating in systemic ways. Now more than ever, we need to implement holistic governmental and societal approaches, whole of a government and whole of society approaches at all levels. 2021 and 2022 will be decisive years. We have had ahead 4 COPs, UNFCCC, CBD, desertification, Ramsar, UNEP 5, and the celebration of the 50 years of the UN Environment Program. This provides a unique opportunity to generate momentum, enhance coordination, and seek ways to increase ambition to achieve the transformational change required to avoid the tipping points in ecosystem destruction. In this sense, Costa Rica's co-chair of the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People, jointly with France and the United Kingdom, is committed to seeking synergies between the conventions. And we need nature. We need to protect and restore our marine and land ecosystems to achieve the Paris goals. Nevertheless, this transformational change can also require an extreme makeover in solidarity patterns. For this systemic agenda, we need to guarantee long-term financial flows to facilitate our long-term strategies and technological roadmaps in developing countries. We also expect more integrated and ambitious approaches among cooperation agencies, environmental financial facilities, and MDBs. This transformation requires mobilization of public and private funds, and for this reason, we need to transform the financial system to align investments to activities that do not harm nature, which will accelerate the decarbonization and resilient processes. And this is, again, where ministers of environment can play a role. Costa Rica is committed to implementing our decarbonization plan despite these challenging socioeconomic times. This week, we are celebrating 2 years of its launch, with more than 90% of its 2022 milestones reporting advanced ongoing processes. We have created a new protected land area, have restored urban biological corridors, have produced electricity with 99% renewable resources, and have installed e-mobility fast chargers all over the country, among others. Furthermore, we continue with this vision because we know that it is good for the economy. According to a 2020 analysis of cost benefits, this plan's implementation will provide about 41 billion of net benefits across our economy from 2020 to 2050. We also recently published our enhanced NDC aligned to our decarbonization plan, including adaptation and just transition measures and ocean and nature-based solutions measures. At the doors of critical socioeconomic decisions to be taken in our countries, and also at the doors of the 50th anniversary of the UN Environment Program, we, ministers of environment, have the responsibility to tackle these systemic risks and challenges and transform them into opportunities to catalyze generation of green jobs, and to make decarbonization, resilience, and nature contours of our development and recovery plans. I hope that this dialogue can bring innovation solutions to all of this discussion. Thank you very much. And Joyce and Inger, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Meza Murillo. Now I have the pleasure to welcome Ms. Inga Andersen, the Executive Director of UNEP, to deliver her opening remarks. Inga, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and a warm thanks to all ministers for being present in this very important dialogue. At this point, let me also just express my deep thanks to my of reflection. Let's take action. Future generations stand to inherit a hothouse planet with more carbon in the atmosphere than in 800,000 years. Unless we take action,
Inga,
generations will cities from Castro to Lagos.
Inga, you're not coming through.
Unless we take action, we will. Future generations will be lucky if they can spot a black rhino. And unless we take action,
with apologies, we have lost Inga. We're trying to reconnect the Executive Director. Sincere apologies, ministers. Just to save time, ministers, because of possibly the rain here in Nairobi, we have lost the connection with Inga. I would like to propose that we continue with the agenda and we will reconnect Inga in due course. If I may just add to what Inga started mentioning, the recent report, Making Peace with Nature, which was released on the occasion of UNEP, presents compelling scientific data on why we have to tackle the three planetary crises: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. The message is very clear. The current trend of unsustainable production and consumption that damages the environment is leading us to a 3+ degrees world. The scientific assessments synthesized in this report shows that we have the knowledge and ability to meet these challenges through renewable energy, sustainable food systems, and nature-based solutions. In short, nature is our ally to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. With this in mind, and before we move to open the interactive part of our dialogue, I would like to invite our Executive Director, Inga, to finish off her opening remarks. Inga, please, the floor over to you.
We'll try again here and see how it goes. Thank you. This is what we're working with, the digital divide in all ways and manners. What I was saying was that as UNEP's Making Peace with Nature report notes, the Earth's environmental emergencies must be addressed together to achieve that sustainability. And that means tackling the red thread that binds our emergencies together. Decades of take, make, and discard, our unsustainable consumption and production, tackling these so as to arrive at the Sustainable Development Goals. So what does leadership then for the planet look like? Leadership means for the planet means trusting science. Leadership for the planet means immediate action. It means living up to our global agreements. It means reinventing multilateralism. It means bringing everyone under the big decision tent. It means leaving no one behind. It means financing and international solidarity. It means protecting the poor and the vulnerable. Leadership for the planet means making peace with nature. And as we listen to each other, allow me to share some inspiring words by the young poet Amanda Gorman. Where despite disparities, we all care to protect the world. This riddled blue marble, this little true marble, to muster the verve and the nerve, to see how we can serve our planet. You don't need to be a politician to make it your mission to conserve and protect, to preserve that only one home that is ours, to use your unique power to give the next generation the planet they deserve. And while this is a training in sustaining the future of our planet, there is no rehearsal. The time is now, because the reversal of harm and the protection of a future so universal should be anything but controversial. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inga. We are now going to hear from ministers of environments, stakeholders, and leaders about their ideas, ongoing efforts, and initiatives to bring the environmental dimension in their plans to building back better and green post-pandemic world. I would like to remind honorable ministers and speakers to kindly limit your message to 3 minutes maximum. We have a timer on the screen to help us keep the time. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I now have the pleasure to open the floor for the following ministers and representatives of major groups. Excellency Huang Ruqi, China, followed by Excellency Svenja Schulze, Germany. Excellency Yasmine Fouad, Egypt would be next, followed by Excellency Carlos Correa Escaf, Colombia, and followed by Excellency Ján Podesta, special guest. I would request if you can put your hand up to request the microphone to be open. And now, China, you have the floor. Over to you. Thank you.
Msuya 女士，各位同事，先生们、女士们，早上好，下午好，晚上好。首先我代表中国代表团感谢联合国环境署在这个关键的时刻召开第5届联合国环境大会第1阶段的会议，也感谢挪威作为大会的主席国，协调各成员国务实推进大会的进程。人与自然是生命的共同体，气候变化、生物多样性丧失、环境污染3重危机叠加，加强保护自然行动，实现可持续发展目标，刻不容缓。2021年是我们采取行动的关键性的一年。生物多样性公约第15次缔约方大会将在中国的昆明举办。大会的主题
The theme is ecological civilization, building a shared future for all life on Earth, which is most relevant to the current situation and provides guidance for the global biodiversity governance. President Xi has, on several occasions, sent out his invitation to gather in Kunming for consultation on protecting global biodiversity. China, as the host, has been engaged in the preparation process in coordination with the Convention Secretariat. The international community is expressing more than ever its concern over biodiversity conservation and places high expectations on COP15 to adopt the post-2020 global biodiversity framework that is ambitious, realistic, and balanced, so as to advance just and fair global governance and effectively curb the biodiversity loss. All parties have worked hard to advance the negotiation process despite the pandemic impact. I would like to call on all sides to uphold the CBD principles, seek common grounds while respecting differences, and strive for consensus at an earlier date in the month ahead. regarding the mandate and rules under the Convention. In the fight against global environmental challenges, no country could win the battle by itself, as it requires global action, global response, and global cooperation. China stands ready to share its experiences and make greater contributions in building a shared future for all life on Earth, where man and nature coexist in harmony. I look forward to seeing you all at COP15 in Kunming. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, China. Now the floor is open to Germany. Germany, you have the floor.
Yes, I think you can hear me now. I have no camera. So, well. Yes, so thanks a lot. So, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I'm really delighted that we are able to meet today. We do that virtually, but we meet. And doing so, the environment ministers, are sending a clear message. Despite the pandemic, environmental protection is not being sidelined. On the contrary, we are making progress in the fight against the climate crisis and the destruction of nature, even in these really difficult times. And our efforts to combat the coronavirus pandemic have been at the forefront of our policy making for months, and rightly so. Many countries, including Germany, have initiated unprecedented investment programs to tackle the crisis. As governments, we are faced with a choice. We can't perpetuate our old economic and social structures with traditional economic recovery plans, or we can invest in a sustainable and inclusive future. Economic stimulus packages create an opportunity to speed up social and environmental transformation, and they can help our societies emerge from the COVID crisis more sustainable and more resilient. In the spirit of the 2030 Agenda, it is important to consider not only the environmental dimension, but also the social dimension. How this can be accomplished is a question that is currently on the minds of governments all over the world. And that is why it is fitting that today's leadership dialogue addresses these very questions. And I'm very glad that in Germany and the EU, we have results to be completely climate neutral by 2050. In December, right in the middle of the pandemic, we also decided to raise our 2030 climate target in the EU. By 2030, we plan to lower our carbon emissions by at least 55% compared to 1990 levels. The previous target was only 40%. We will use the government's stimulus aid to accelerate the shift to a climate neutral and environmental sustainable future. At the same time, we are developing new economically sustainable future. And at the same time, we are developing new economic sectors with excellent prospects, such as green hydrogen or the production of batteries. And I'm very aware that not all countries have the necessary financial flexibility to launch their own economic recovery plans. And this is why Germany supports its partner countries as part of my ministry's International Climate Initiative. We support, for example, immediate action to protect threatened nature reserves and indigenous groups. We also help countries to emerge from the crisis more sustainable and resilient. And last year, the Federal Environment Ministry has committed additional funds of 68 million euros to facilitate these works. We also support the green recovery activities of the UN-PAGE Alliance and the NDC partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, the current pandemic once again clearly highlights the correlation between nature conservation and the protection of human health. To mitigate the risk of future pandemics, we need to conserve biodiversity and protect ecosystems more effectively. We can only be healthy if animals and the environment as a whole are also healthy. The global post-2020 biodiversity framework can and must play a central role in this context. And I am committed to ensuring that we adopt ambitious resolutions at the upcoming CBD COP15. The global community will have the chance at the COP in Kunming to show that it has learned from the coronavirus crisis. At this conference, we can jointly decide on the measures needed for global biodiversity conservation. And this would also help us to reduce the risk of future pandemics. In addition to ambitious targets, we need strong implementation mechanisms and adequate funding. And together with my colleagues from the EU, I will do everything in my power to achieve these aims. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Now, Egypt, you have the floor, please.
Honorable Minister from Egypt, the mic is open.
Should we go to the next one?
Egypt, Excellency Yasmine, forward. Okay, perhaps we can go with Colombia while we are trying to connect Egypt. Colombia, you have the floor. Excellency Carlos Correa Escaf, you have the floor.
Sí, ya.
Minister, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Muy buenos días a todos. Un saludo muy
Good morning
especial a
to all.
todos
I'd
los
like to
jefes de
extend my
Estado, de
greetings to
gobierno,
all heads of
a los
state and
ministros,
government,
embajadores, a los
to
jefes de
ministers,
delegación y a
ambassadors, and heads
todos
of
los que
delegation,
nos
and
escuchan.
ladies and gentlemen, and
Quiero
all those who are
resaltar que
listening
quienes
online.
nos
I'd
encontramos
like to
reunidos
underscore
en
that
este
as we meet in
importante
this leadership
escenario de
dialogue,
discusión y de prospectiva,
and as
tenemos
we
la plena convicción
think
de que el
towards
año
this year, we have
2020
the
se ha
full
convertido en un
conviction
hito
that
en nuestra
2020
historia,
is going to be a
poniendo en
milestone in our
evidencia
history,
las fragilidades de las
highlighting the
esferas
fragilities
económicas,
of our
sociales
economies, our
y
societies,
políticas de
and the
nuestros países.
policies of our countries.
La actual emergencia nos ha
The
llevado a
current
replantear y
emergency has
rediseñar los
made
modelos
us
de desarrollo,
redesign our models
los
for
patrones de
development,
producción y de
patterns for
consumo,
production and
e
consumption,
incluso nos ha planteado
and
la
has
necesidad de
also shown
establecer
us the need to
acciones
set out
urgentes
urgent
que nos
actions
permitan garantizar
that allow us
la
to guarantee
implementación de la
the
Agenda
implementation of
2030
the Agenda
y, por supuesto, de
2030
los Objetivos
and,
de
of course,
Desarrollo
the Sustainable
Sostenible.
Development Goals as well.
Es así que el pasado 11 de
Thus,
febrero,
on the
en
11th of
Colombia,
February just gone,
aprobamos la
in
política para la
Colombia, we approved a
reactivación y el
policy for the
crecimiento sostenible e
revival and
incluyente.
sustainable and
Nuestro
inclusive
nuevo
growth,
compromiso
and new
por el futuro de
commitment for the
Colombia,
future of
el
Colombia,
cual
as it's
se
known.
ejecutará
And
en
this
alianza con el sector
is
privado.
done in partnership with the
Asimismo, y de
private
manera
sector.
paralela
Furthermore,
a
in
nuestro
parallel with
proceso de
this, and
reactivación
hand in
económica,
hand with our process
desde el
for
sector
economic
de medio
recovery,
ambiente hemos
in the
acordado
environmental
para
sector,
este
we've also agreed
2021
for 2021
continuar
to
trabajando en
continue
temas muy
to work
importantes
on the
como la
following
lucha contra la
important issues,
deforestación
such as
para
tackling
llegar al año
deforestation
2030
in order
cero
to reach
deforestación,
2030 with
la
zero
maduración del
deforestation,
mercado de carbono, que será una
broadening the
herramienta
carbon
también
market.
importante de
This is also a
reactivación
very critical
económica y
tool
de
to
lucha
kickstart the
contra
economy
la
and to
deforestación,
combat
la
deforestation,
implementación de la
the
Estrategia
implementation
Nacional
of
de
the national
Economía
strategy
Circular,
for the
el
circular economy,
fortalecimiento del
strengthening
ecoturismo en
ecotourism
nuestros
in
parques nacionales,
national
la
parks,
siembra de
planting
180 millones de árboles
180
en el
million
cuatrenio,
trees,
la implementación del Pacto de
implementation
Leticia,
of the
la
Leticia
construcción de la
Pact,
Alianza
the
Global por la
construction of the
protección de los
Global
páramos y un
Alliance for the
eje muy
protection of
importante que es la
moorlands,
educación
and
ambiental,
also
la formación
environmental
ambiental y
education
la
and environmental
creación de
training is
conciencia
absolutely
ambiental
critical to
desde los
raise
niños,
environmental
jóvenes, adolescentes,
awareness from
adultos y
young
por
people and
supuesto a
children,
nuestro sector productivo.
and of course throughout the
Las
whole sector
fragilidades
of
que se han
society. The
acentuado con la
fragilities
pandemia
which
también
we
han
have
puesto en
seen throughout this
evidencia
pandemic
que
have
en
also
este nuevo
highlighted that
proceso
this
de
new process of
recuperación
recovery
de los
for
países
countries is not only within the remit of governments, but also in cooperation with the private sector, civil society, and international cooperation, under new frameworks of cooperation based upon the principle of solidarity, which meets the conditions for each national context. It is therefore for this reason that the policy which we must address within this Assembly is to drive more ambitious targets and commitments in the international context, such as the NDCs, the Global Framework for Post-2020 and the Convention Against Biological Diversity, COP, CDB and Cali, amongst others. For example, the updating of our nationally determined contributions, the NDCs, which we set as a target 51% of greenhouse gas emissions for our country between now and 2030. Thus, it is important to support initiatives such as the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, 2021 to 2030, the action for climate change, sustainable food systems, and the reduction in the use of plastics, to name but a few. Lastly, we hope to be able to meet in person in February 2022 to resume this Assembly and to once again to launch discussions and to further discussions on the impacts which will become part of this new normal, which we hope this will be very soon. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Excellency from Colombia. Egypt, Excellency Yasmine, forward. Okay. We'll go to the last speaker from this group, Mr. Ján Podesta, special guest. Mr. Podesta, you have the floor.
I want to thank UNEP for the invitation to speak. Excellencies, we're meeting at a critical juncture. The world is grappling with a confluence of crises right now. The coronavirus pandemic, the global economic crisis that resulted, the accelerating climate crisis, and the nature crisis that threatens with extinction an eighth of planetary species, many within decades. As the UNEP Making Peace with Nature report outlines, these crises are interlinked, and governments, businesses, and civil society must respond with solutions that recognize that. The U.S. will once again play a major role in this regard. President Biden has declared climate change as central to his economic policy and to his foreign and security policy. He has returned the U.S. to the Paris Climate Agreement. He is committed to protecting 30% of the country's lands, waters, and oceans by 2030, and he has announced that he will host the Climate Leaders Summit on April 22nd. All these steps come at a critical moment. As UNEP's Executive Director Inger Andersen pointed out, the COVID pandemic was spurred on by extreme natural destruction, which has increased the likelihood of zoonotic diseases spreading to humans. This, in turn, has heightened our challenge to tackle the biodiversity crisis and the climate crisis. A negative turn in any of these crises likely means a negative turn in all of them. And that's what we're seeing now. Our lands are stressed. Our oceans are stressed. Nature is stressed to the breaking point. If we're going to correct course, we must set biodiversity targets alongside climate targets as part of the post-pandemic economic recovery, including protecting 30% of lands and oceans by 2030. We must see these issues as interconnected, where success is only possible if we tackle all of these components concurrently. And the efforts must be global. COVID's reach has shown that anything short of comprehensive international cooperation is insufficient, and that the most vulnerable will continue to suffer. Nevertheless, I see two reasons for optimism. One, the Sustainable Development Goals provide an equitable, sustainable, and climate-sensitive framework for how governments, the private sector, and civil society can work together to tackle these crises. And two, there's a global recognition of the challenges we face. G7 countries are all committed to net zero, as are a majority of G20 countries. Corporations, financial institutions, and consumers are all pushing for net zero commitments in nature conservation. And young people around the world are using their voices to advocate for equitable and just solutions. To capitalize on this consensus and to build political momentum, the first order of business must be to build back better infrastructure with sustainable goals in mind. We cannot tackle the climate and nature crisis without moving away from polluting infrastructure. As the Secretary General's high-level panel on post-2015 goals on which I served noted 5 years ago, we need a transformation, a new spirit of solidarity, cooperation, and mutual accountability based on our common understanding of our shared humanity. Excellencies, in 2021, we need to turn that spirit into action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Podesta. May I ask if Excellency Fouad is online to refresh the Google Chrome, please? But I want to thank all the ministers and leaders from the first group of the dialogue for your very rich perspectives and examples from your respective countries and institutions. Now I have the pleasure to open the floor for the following ministers and representative of international organization. Excellency Alue Dohong, Indonesia, followed by Excellency Paula Cristina Francisco Coelho, Angola, Excellency Stientje van Veldhoven, Netherlands, Vice Minister Mariano Castro, Peru, and last, Mr. Bruno Obel, IUCN. Indonesia, you have the floor. Thank you.
Indonesia, we see you, but unfortunately we cannot hear you. Honorable Minister.
Guys, can you hear me? Sorry?
Yes, now we can hear you.
All right. Thank you. Allow me to repeat again. Excellencies, ministers, and leaders, Your Excellency, Mr. Svenja Rutherford, President of the UN Environment Assembly, Your Excellency, Mrs. Andersen, Executive Director of UN Environment, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, allow me on behalf of the government of Indonesia to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the Secretariat of the UN Environment for the excellent organization of the first phase of the 5th meeting of the United Nations Environmental Assembly, or UNEP 5, and this important leaders dialogue in virtual mode. Ministers, leaders, distinguished delegates, the world is now entering a critical juncture of the global environment challenges due to the degradation of environments and natural resources. As COVID-19 pandemic has worsened our economic and social vulnerability, making it more important to raise efforts to manage susceptibility. Indonesia is cautiously advancing its development while addressing environmental challenges in balanced and holistic manners. As part of the National Economic Recovery Program, the government of Indonesia launched environmentally friendly recovery program, including labor-intensive mangrove rehabilitation, the establishment of sustainable food estates. We also accelerate social forestry program to ensure social and livelihood resilience, implement circular economy by utilizing waste for industrial raw materials, and recently started to substitute coal for electricity, as well as improve ecosystem and landscape resilience by implementing integrated watershed and marine ecosystem management and promoting climate-friendly cities and villages toward greener, more equitable, inclusive, and climate resilient society and economy in the future. Colleges, ministers, and leaders, as we need to strengthen collaboration and action, as well as build stronger, sound political will among global community. UNEP 5 should send a strong message to the world that inclusive acts for nature is possible and greatly contribute in building back better and achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Yet, the message need also be balanced and reflects common but differentiated responsibility principle. Indonesia will host the fourth meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Minamata Convention on Mercury in Bali, scheduled in November this year. I welcome you to participate in this important event to strengthen our collaboration in making Mercury history. To conclude, we must remember that our action today will be judged by our future generation. So let us unite and work hand in hand in saving the future we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister from Indonesia. We managed to connect Egypt, Minister Fouad. If you can come in now, and then we will invite Angola. Okay, we'll keep on trying with Egypt. We have some technical difficulties. Angola, you have the floor, Minister. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President of UNEP 5, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol observed. It is for me an honor and a privilege to participate in this leadership dialogue. I take the floor on behalf of Mr. Jomo Fortunato, Minister of Tourism, Culture, and Environment of the Republic of Angola. We meet this year under extraordinary circumstances, in large part due to the prevalence of COVID-19 pandemic that prevails in most of the planet. Not ever before was our ability to cooperate so challenged by nature the object of our deliberation. For Angola, the COVID-19 pandemic has served as a reminder of the intrinsic relationship between nature, our societies, and our economies. Furthermore, it is demonstrating just how interconnected our existence is in this planet is. As stated by the Executive Secretary, the world is facing a triple crisis: a climate crisis, a loss of biodiversity crisis, and a pollution crisis. Given that none of this can be tackled by any one single nation alone, it is essential that we engage with our view to safeguard the environmental dimensions of sustainable development everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, attaining sustained economic growth and sustainable development, it is at the center of our policies and actions. In the development world, which accounts for 80% of the world's population, billions of people seek improvements in their standards of life, and they are directly dependent on their immediate ecosystems for survival. As population grows, so does the pressure on our fragile and balanced ecosystems, hence the imperative action in unison. In Angola, the current pandemic will leave behind a less vibrant, productive economy. Our vulnerability to international commodity prices is affecting the employment prospects of the youth and compromise investments aimed at diversifying the economy. Nevertheless, environmental sustainability remains an essential element for our policies. As such, we remain committed to strengthen the environmental governance and safeguards in our policies and initiatives. In part, this is derived from the imperative of remaining true of our Constitution, which defines the right of the health environment as a fundamental right. As a result, environmental safeguards and standards, including the conservation and preservation of the loss of biodiversity and the ensuring within national laws and regulations. Ladies and gentlemen, as stated earlier, we must reorganize and accept that when it comes to environmental governance, we are interconnected states in a way that is analogs to humanities dependent on nature. Consequently, international cooperation, solidarity, and justice play a vital role in building a sustainable, resilient, and inclusive global community. In tackling this crisis before us, they are essential when it comes to the sharing of knowledge and means of implementation that enables action in a manner that is consistent to the real principles, in particular to the principle of the common but differentiated responsibilities. To the last end, the United Nations Environmental Programme has an important role to play in enabling the uniform implementation of bilateral environmental agreements and legal instruments. Beyond serving as a platform for cooperation, this organization has a role to play in advocating and facilitating the sharing of knowledge and the means of implementation. We thank you.
Thank you very much, Angola. Netherlands, you have the floor.
Note has stated very clearly that climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution are closely interconnected and are key challenges in a post-COVID recovery. I think Inger put it really quite pointedly. Leadership is accepting science and moving forward. There is no vaccine against biodiversity loss and climate change, but there will be as life happening if we do not come up with the appropriate remedies. So I wholeheartedly support United Nations Environment Programme and its new strategy that puts sustainable consumption and production at the heart of the systems approach for recovery. I'd just like to say congratulations, Inge, and your team on this. Close cooperation on the global level is essential to making peace with nature, and UNEP is really playing a key role here. By shaping the global environmental agenda and addressing some of the most urgent challenges ahead of us, such as the pollution of our oceans with marine plastic litter, we really need more global action on these challenges. But international cooperation won't succeed without the right measures, of course, at the national and regional level. And I must say, listening so far to the meeting, I'm really impressed how far we've come, listening to all the colleagues here on their national plans. But I also see that we still have a lot to do. And the Netherlands is certainly taking its part. We are working on clean air, and we signed a national clear air agreement. Protecting our nature and diversity, we aim to drastically reduce. Okay.
Thank you. I think we have lost Netherlands. We'll try to reconnect Netherlands briefly. If I could welcome Excellency Mariano Castro from Peru. You have the floor.
El ministro Gabriel Quijandría se encuentra en Madre de Dios, en la Amazonía peruana, una de las cunas de la biodiversidad mundial, cuyo territorio está siendo afectado por extremas inundaciones y desbordes de los ríos Tambopata y Madre de Dios. Estamos trabajando juntos para abordar esta problemática que ha afectado a más de 15.000 personas y ha dañado a más de 4.000 hectáreas de cultivo. Estos eventos extremos están asociados a la deforestación y minería ilegal que causa la colmatación de los cauces por los sedimentos arrastrados de las laderas desprovistas de vegetación, lo cual evidencia una relación disfuncional con la naturaleza. Además, hace días también se registró un derretimiento de glaciares ubicados en la cordillera sur peruana. Estas cordilleras denominadas La Raya, Vilcanota y Carabaya han perdido en los últimos años una superficie de hasta el 73%. Además, en la zona afectada, perdón, voy a prender la cámara, sí. Además, esta zona es afectada por la COVID-19 y en la frontera con Brasil hubo en los días previos presencia de población haitiana que igualmente pide cuidado y albergue.
had refugees from Haiti who also needed to be welcomed and hosted. I am in lockdown.
Eventual contagio.
At the moment in self-isolation. Now, distinguished delegates, once again, we have seen that everything is connected, and that we must strengthen and change policies that includes solutions which look at climate targets. Now, the enormous socioeconomic costs caused by bad global and national practices, as well as and joining science research with public policies. We are living under exceptional circumstances. Nevertheless, this is a time that gives us new opportunities so that we can understand the needs for sustainability for the planet, which depends upon the responsibility upon which we must shoulder ourselves, which is to protect Mother Earth. In this vein, Peru supports the approach of the One Health approach in order to promote an effective change of strategies which we have been developing, but moreover, in order to drive an inclusive and sustainable and resilient development which takes into account nature-based solutions. Furthermore, this pandemic urges us to take immediate and urgent actions to curb climate change, to halt the loss of biodiversity and pollution and climate change. In this vein, it is absolutely critical that the economic recovery plans incorporate an environmental dimension which allows us to achieve a resilient economy which is low in carbon. Under this framework, Peru is committed to increase its ambition to reduce 30 to 40% of the carbon emissions between now and 2030, with the firm pledge to convert itself as a country by 2050 in a neutral carbon country. Moreover, we continue to work on our national adaptation plan, and we have implemented a series of measures in order to boost the circular economy and roadmaps and the manufacture, agricultural sector and the fishing sector, and also to have clean production measures with the production sectors, also to reduce single-use plastics in order to protect our biodiversity and to have an economy which is compatible with the Sustainable Development Goals. I'd also like to emphasize that this crisis allowed us to understand international cooperation and to work in solidarity to look for synergies and strategic alliances in order to overcome the environmental challenges ahead of us. The Leticia Pact for the Amazon, for example, shows a clear pledge from the Amazonian countries in order to achieve the preservation and conservation of our forests, to improve conditions of indigenous people, and to improve biodiversity. Moreover, the Circular Economy Coalition, which we have put in place since the Environmental Minister Forum for GRULAC, as well as the Coalition for People, has agreed an agreement with Switzerland for the implementation of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, shows our commitment of the international community to further new sustainable consumption production models. Lastly, this meeting of UNEP 5 in 2022 should be the time in order to achieve a review together, not only in UNEP, but how we have contributed in the last 50 years since its inception in order to improve our strategies, but also to drive forward actions at the regional level and to look at the capacities of each region in order to achieve the global agenda, in order to contribute and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and the need to strengthen even further the international role of the environmental dimension in the 2030 agenda. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you very much, Peru. We will try to reconnect a minister from the Netherlands. Netherlands, you have the floor, followed by Egypt. Thank you.
to participate in this leadership dialogue at this crucial meeting. I think the concept note really states very clearly, climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, they are all close connected, and they're key challenges in our post-COVID recovery. I think Inger said it very pointedly, leadership is accepting science and moving forward on its basis. There is no vaccine against biodiversity loss and climate change, but they will be as life-threatening if we do not come up with the appropriate remedies. So I wholeheartedly support the United Nations Environment Programme and its new strategy that puts sustainable consumption and production really at the heart of the systems approach for recovery. Congratulations, Inger, I'd like to say. Close cooperation on the global level is essential to making peace with nature, and UNEP is really playing a key role here by shaping the global environmental agenda and addressing some of the most urgent challenges, like the pollution of our oceans with marine plastic litter. We need more global action on these challenges, but international cooperation won't succeed without the right measures at the national and the regional level. And I must really say that I'm impressed how far we've come if I listen to my colleagues from all over the world on their national plans. That is really fantastic. But we also still have a lot to do, and the Netherlands is really committed to taking their part. We are going to be working on cleaning the air. We've signed a national clean air agreement. We're going to be working on protecting our nature and biodiversity, drastically reducing pollution, cutting nitrogen emissions, increasing nature reserves and protect habitats, reducing the amount of waste, promoting circular economies, closing the loop in the circular economy. That's why we'll be an active partner in the Global Alliance for the Circular Economy and Resource Efficiency, which was initiated by the European Commission. And that's also why we support PACE, the platform for the acceleration of the circular economy. This is really going to be key for our future. We need to reshape our relationship with plastic. That's why I initiated a national plastic pact, but also with my French and Danish counterpart, a European plastic pact. We need to make our industries and production safe and circular by design. These points are the essence of our national environment policy framework that we recently launched. I'd like to finalize with one remark, dear friends. On April 15th and 16th, we hope to welcome you all to the World Circular Economy Plus Climate. This conference will focus on the essential contribution of the circular economy to achieve the world's climate ambitions. For several branches, we're talking about almost 50% of reduction. So we will need this half of the solution to solve half of the problem. Actions that will allow us, together with partners like UNEP, to make peace with nature again. And I really hope to see you all there, to look forward to proposing concrete actions to take us further in this field. Thank you so much for this meeting so far, and I'm looking forward to your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Netherlands. We appreciate your input. Now, Egypt, you have the floor. Minister Fouad. Hope we've managed to connect you. Great, thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure to address you today in the 5th session of the UNEA. At the outset, I would like to associate my statement with the statement of the G77 and China, and the statement of the African group as well. Our meeting today comes in unexceptional circumstances. For the first time, UNEA is being held virtually for both the procedure and the programmatic decisions, as we agreed. And this would give us a clear message, a message of trying to adapt with the virtual part, but trying also to have a testimony and an evidence of how virtual and online meeting has the two sides, connecting, but yet not so sure of how we are going to continue that connection and whether it is really inclusive, yes or no. I've spent the last 1 hour trying for that connection back and forth. But anyway, it's a trial that we had all to go through. I would like to commend the session theme, Strengthening Action for Nature, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. It comes at the right time, the time where it is proven that we all need nature, and nature does not need us. Our impact on the Earth system has negatively impacted our health system. Apart from what is happening with the pandemic, there is a clear message that comes through that. Biodiversity loss, climate change, and land degradation should be interconnected and cannot be considered in isolation. That is why in CBD COP14, Egypt has launched an initiative on the coherent approach for linking climate change, land degradation, biodiversity. With the latest report of the UNEP, Making Peace with Nature, I think we need to materialize that. But not only nature as biodiversity, but the whole ecosystem-based approach that links the climate change, land degradation, people, local community all together and gives benefit to all, socially, economically, and environmentally. With the report of the UNEP, Making Peace with Nature, we need to have actions on the ground. As we need ambitious targets, we also need ambitious means of implementation, capacity development, technology transfer, and the utmost is the financial resources and the different means of that. Egypt has successfully, within its Green Recovery Plan, has succeeded to simply announce the first governmental green bonds with a 1.9 billion portfolio of environmental projects, as well as to adopt at the level of the cabinet the first environmental sustainability criteria for our national investment projects. We are all in one boat, and international solidarity and responsibilities and roles should be our target throughout the next few years in order to save and protect our planet for our future generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Egypt, and thank you for your patience. Lastly, under this group, IUCN representative, Bruno Obele, you have the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the ongoing pandemic has caused immense suffering and ground nations to halt. We have to make sure we build back better and greener. The evidence is clear. Widespread investment in nature offers quick and highly attractive returns for all. Planting trees or restoring floodplains, for example, are labor-intensive tasks that fit well in the public employment programs of stimulus packages. In Europe, the Natura 2000 network of protected areas supports already 4.4 million jobs while providing services and benefits worth up to 340 billion per year. A nature-based recovery is cost-effective, creates jobs, and crucially, safeguards us against future pandemics. IUCN is analyzing a range of investment avenues that stimulate economic activity, conserve nature, and foster sustainable development. Guided by tools such as the IUCN Nature-Based Solutions Standard and the Environmental Rule of Law, this catalogue of nature-positive intervention will support decision makers worldwide. On this basis, I have launched the Nature-Based Recovery, an IUCN initiative that aims to ensure at least 10% and where possible up to 30% of overall investment in stimulus packages are channeled to nature-based solutions and to interventions that add value to nature. To make sure these measures continue after the pandemic, we are working with many of you on the Finance for Nature initiative to mainstream investment flows that internalize nature-related risks and ensure that our natural capital can grow. By working with our 1,400 member organizations comprising states, ministries, NGOs, indigenous people, IUCN urged the world to make investment in nature the norm. I invite you to join us and to join forces in the nature-based recovery initiative. Ultimately, through the IUCN World Congress, World Conservation Congress, the Kunming COP that adopts an ambitious global biodiversity framework, and the Glasgow Climate Summit, we will forge a post-pandemic path where economic recovery and environmental sustainability are one and the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much, IUCN, for your contribution. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I now have the pleasure to open the floor for the following ministers and representatives of international organizations. I would kindly remind to limit your contributions to 3 minutes maximum. Excellency Michał Kutkia, Poland. Excellency Jundak Mujawamaria, Rwanda. Excellency Abdullah Nasser, Maldives. Excellency Malik Amin Aslam, Pakistan. Excellency Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, Global Environment Facility. Poland, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We hear you very well, sir.
Perfect. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we all would like to seize the opportunity to come out of the pandemic into a better world, a greener one, where we learn to make better use of the resources, a world that offers new opportunities to improve our well-being and reduces inequalities. A world that helps to bring out the minds we need to create technologies necessary to respond to many environmental challenges. A world that leaves no one behind. I do hope that in case of Poland, the green recovery will help us in a fundamental restructuring of the critical sectors without leaving anyone behind. Poland is more than ever ready for all the necessary efforts to complete the transition to a low-emission, climate-resilient and resource-efficient economy. As time goes by, it becomes increasingly obvious that addressing a wide range of COVID-19 impacts require increased global cooperation, and there is clearly a role for UNEP to help us. The new medium-term strategy provides UNEP with a mandate to step up global action to address climate change, biodiversity loss, and environmental pollution. All of this is critical for the overall achievement of the 2030 agenda. And Inger Andersen, you have all our support, and we keep our fingers crossed for your and our success in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, let me talk about cities. They are sensitive areas where the most urgent ecological challenges are focused. Broad public consultations have led my ministry to prepare a package of legislative and non-legislative instruments to support cities in their environmental policies. Additionally, we created dedicated funds for cities to improve rainwater management and to shape urban greenery. We support citizens in their efforts to live in a more environment-friendly manner. To this end, we subsidize development of micro-retention infrastructure as well as improving energy efficiency and reducing heat emissions of single-family houses. Special support is provided to people living in energy poverty in order to switch to ecological heat sources or undertake thermomodernization of their houses. We also promote building houses according to the highest environmental and climate standards. And I would like to invite you to talk more about municipal policies during the 11th World Urban Forum, which will take place next year in Poland, in Katowice. And for many of us, that this is a very familiar place, as this is where we held COP24 in December 28, which ended in a very successful outcome, adopting Katowice rulebook, serving the Paris Agreement, and helping us achieve Paris Agreement goals. So that's a highly successful place, and I think we can continue around the urban agenda also in Katowice next year. Equally important are our efforts towards circular economy. We are working to reduce discarded plastics in the environment. We also intend to prepare a food waste prevention program. It will support reduction of food waste generation on all stages of the food supply chain. And last but not least, Poland has committed to reducing coal consumption in the energy mix and thus undertook an almost complete transformation of the national energy system. For this purpose, the government has adopted energy policy of Poland until 2030 that presents an ambitious, consistent, and responsible way towards a climate-neutral economy as well as energy and societal transformation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Poland. Rwanda, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon from Kigali, Rwanda. It's a pleasure to be part of this important leadership dialogue at the 5th session of the UN Environment Assembly. Rwanda, like any other developing country, has faced and is still facing direct and indirect health, social, financial, and environmental impacts caused by COVID-19 pandemic. As a concrete measures to take, the government of Rwanda updated and submitted the national determined contributions in May last year. The government has put in place an economic recovery fund to support sectors that were mostly affected by the pandemic, including small and medium enterprises, including environmental enterprises. Currently, the government is urgently investing in emergency responses, including social protection interventions, monetary policy interventions, for instance, deferred payment, fiscal stimulus packages for businesses, all with the foundation of environment protection and climate resilience interventions. However, to ensure that resources mobilized not only be implemented in the form of emergency and therefore forget the sustainability component, the government of Rwanda started the in-depth assessment of the impact of COVID-19 on current climate ambition, socioeconomic policies, programs and economic recovery stimulus packages, and identification opportunities for including climate actions and NDC's targets in the short, medium, and long term. The government is undertaking the revision of the impact of COVID-19 on the revised NDC and adjust costing of the revised NDCs based on the COVID-19 crisis. The government of Rwanda is mobilizing resources through international funding bodies and other networks for the economic stimulus with consideration of climate actions. We believe through working together, we will overcome the economic and environmental challenges caused by COVID-19 pandemic. And we in Rwanda believe that unless all of us are resilient, none of us is resilient. And together for our common and the only home we have to protect. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Rwanda. Maldives, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Ministers, Executive Director Inga Andersen, delegates of member states, heads of NGOs, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. First of all, I wish to thank and congratulate the Secretariat on the arrangements made to hold the 5th United Nations Environment Assembly and also for organizing this leadership dialogue. This is a commendable feat given the challenges that the pandemic presents. We are dealing with one of the greatest challenges in modern history. Our economies are and well-being of our peoples have been critically affected due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has clearly revealed to us the precarious state of progress towards sustainable development. The effect and impacts of the pandemic threatens to undermine and in many cases regress the collective progress we have made over the years. We now need a renewed commitment to strengthen our actions for nature to achieve in many cases, we now need a renewed commitment to strengthen our actions for nature to achieve sustainable development goals. I'm convinced that we can find solutions to the crisis we face today by investing in and committing to nature and biodiversity conservation. And this is why, even throughout the pandemic, in our future plans, we in the Maldives remain committed to protect and conserve nature. In the Maldives, we depend on coral reefs for our livelihood and sustenance, which are threatened by climate change and human activities. We recently declared 2 atolls as UNESCO Biosphere Reserves, the Addu Atoll Biosphere Reserve and the Formula Biosphere Reserve. This is in addition to the already existing Biotoll UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. This is a long-awaited milestone for us, and it is a step towards not only environmental conservation, but also sustainable development. This model has shown the contribution a biosphere can make to the livelihoods of the people living on the atoll and how it can contribute to the economy and in small communities, and how it can promote research and education too. And this is what we hope to replicate across the Maldives in the future. The Maldives will also soon phase out the single-use plastics, which is a real issue for the oceans and coral reefs, and promote the use of sustainable alternatives in our effort to protect human health, coral reefs of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the UNEP symbolizes the commitment by world leaders at Rio 20 to promote the coherent implementation of the environmental dimension of sustainable development. And over the years, it has provided the opportunity to join forces in order to achieve social progress and better standards of life. I hope that we continue this tradition and continue to further strengthen regional environmental governance and cooperation. I thank you for giving us the opportunity. Wish you all good health. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Pakistan, the floor is yours.
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to, Mr. President, the distinguished heads of delegates, Executive Director of UNEP, Ms. Inger Andersen, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start off by, first of all, thanking UNEP for hosting this virtual conference, the 5th UN Environment Assembly. And I would like to say that we are all living through very challenging and unprecedented times all over the world. So this theme that we have for the UNEP 5, which is strengthening action for nature to achieve SDGs, is really apt and appropriate. At the same time, I would like to state over here that the COVID pandemic that we're all facing right now has taught us two very important lessons. The first lesson is that we have taken nature for granted for too long. And it has taught us that nature certainly moves with thresholds. And if we cross those thresholds, nature will react, and it has reacted. It has reacted in the COVID pandemic. It has reacted in the biodiversity loss that we are facing, and it is reacting in the climate change challenge that we are all facing. So all these three challenges are manifestations of reactions of nature. And it has come out strongly and very clearly during this pandemic. The second lesson is also equally important, and the second lesson is also linked with nature. This lesson is that there is a different world possible. We can tread upon a different pathway, and especially what we've seen in the COVID time is that if nature is given a chance, it bounces back also. And we saw, clean air come back, clean waters come back. So I think this has been another very important lesson through this COVID era. As far as Pakistan is concerned, we were already on a nature positive pathway even before COVID. But during the COVID era, we became totally convinced that there is no recovery out of COVID, but a nature-based recovery. And we have stuck to that path. During the height of the pandemic in our country, we announced a green stimulus, a stimulus that is going to take us out of COVID, and we are already on that pathway. It was premised on two basic conditions. One was that we needed to protect nature. This was something which was non-negotiable. And the second one, which was linked with that, was that we needed to take actions which not only protect nature, but also create green jobs, so that the thousands of people who were out of jobs, the daily wages who were out of jobs during the COVID era, could get jobs, but for nature protection. So with this in mind, we focused on three basic areas. The first one was the 10 billion tree project that we were doing already, but we put a very strong injection of money as well as effort into it during the COVID time. And we tilted the whole process towards creation of green jobs. And we managed to create 84,000 green jobs for daily wages who were looking after trees, setting up nurseries, and protecting forests from fires during the COVID era. We plan to increase this from 84,000 to at least 200,000 in the next few months. The second initiative that we announced during the COVID era was called Protected Area Initiative. This was again premised on the belief that we have to invest in nature and we have to protect what is still protected to make sure that our future generations can also enjoy it. So we started expanding our protected areas under this initiative, and to date we have created 15 new national parks, which happened during the COVID era, and this added on to the 30 national parks that we already had. So there was a 50% increase in our national parks during the COVID time. We have now set clear targets for not only land-based protection, which is to go from 12% protection to 15% protection at least, but also marine-based protection. And we hope to achieve our IHE target of 10% of marine area protection very soon in the coming months. So this initiative is also protecting nature, but also creating jobs, which I said was very important for our green economy and for a green-based recovery to take place. The third initiative is called the Clean Green Initiative, in which we have expanded. We first started with 20 cities and looked at the issue of solid waste management, liquid waste management, and how to improve over there through the performance of the local governments and through urban areas focus. Again, creating a lot of jobs which were pro-nature. And we have expanded it from 20 cities to 80 cities during the COVID era. So all these three initiatives, as I said, are premised on the belief and the commitment of the government of Pakistan, which strongly believes that, as I said, there is no other pathway but a nature positive pathway to come out of the COVID era. And I think that this is the pathway that the world needs to take. And I think the UNEP 5 will send out a clear message on this, because it is also linked with SDGs. The SDGs is a commitment of the world, and I think the nature-based actions are the actions that can get us there and get us there with the right sort of solutions and outcomes. I would also like to finally mention that when we talk about nature-based actions and nature-based solutions, we somehow miss out on the issue of nature-based financing. Pakistan tried with a lot of innovative areas during this COVID era, and we have been successful. And we have actually found out during this era that if we are committed to this solution, the money always becomes available. We looked at setting up what is called now the Ecosystem Restoration Fund in Pakistan, and we got our first big chunk of money for that, which was $180 million of money being repurposed for nature protection, and that happened during the COVID era. We're already in the phase of implementing that initiative on the ground, again creating a lot of green jobs. But we've also looked at two other more innovative solutions. One of them is a green-based bond, which is being floated. It's for 500 million euros, which is being floated to support renewable energy development in Pakistan. And our initial feedback from the market has been extremely positive. The third one is called a nature bond, which is linked with the retirement of our sovereign debt. Now, that is a very innovative solution, which is linking quantified nature-based activities with the possible retirement or easing of sovereign debt. Pakistan has been chosen as one of the pilot countries to look into that issue. But all these things have happened only because we put our own commitment, our own money onto nature-based solutions. And I think that is a very strong message for the world, that if you believe in nature-based solutions, you have to first walk the talk. And we walk the talk in Pakistan, and we have been very successful in terms of getting the right impetus and the right wind behind our back to make us move in this direction. Because I think the world is changing. The world that we lived in the 20th century, which was based on pure economics, is not going to be the same in the 21st century. The framework is shifting, and the framework has to include natural capital valuation. It has to include the value of nature, which we have undervalued in the 20th century. And that is a direction that we have to take. And I'm sure UNEP will give out that message from this platform. Finally, I would also like to thank UNEP and announce over here that Pakistan has been chosen as the host for the World Environment Day this year. In 2021, June 5th, Pakistan shall be hosting the World Environment Day, and we will look forward to collaborating with our partners, especially UNEP, to propel this message of nature and this message of a success for nature-based solutions, not only to the world, but also to learn from the world on June 5th. So I would like to thank UNEP for this opportunity, and I look forward to participating in not only the UNEA further sessions, but also being the host of the World Environment Day on June 5th. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Now I would like to welcome Global Environment Facility representative. You have the floor, Mr. Rodriguez. We have some technical challenges with Global Environment Facility. We will bring Mr. Rodriguez during the next set of discussions. I would like to thank all the contributors for your inspiring contributions under different perspectives. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I now have the pleasure to open the floor for the following ministers and civil society, each with 3 minutes maximum. Excellency Gila Gamliel of Israel, followed by Excellency João Pedro Matos Fernandes, Portugal, Excellency Keriako Tobiko, Kenya, Excellency Adrian Peña, Uruguay, and Ms. Sun Lili, Civil Society Representative, China. Israel, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, dear friends, as we rebuild our economies, we must embrace a new paradigm, one which sees the well-being of our economy, our society, and our environment as one interconnected system. We must be guided by the understanding that protecting and sustaining the environment means protecting and sustaining ourselves and our children. We must not be short-sighted and think that nature can pay the price for satisfying human desires with no cost. We must look at the nature as an asset, and in economies, you value your assets. With this in mind, last month, I presented a clear strategy for moving to a circular economy in Israel. I declared a 180-degree turn from landfilling 80% of our waste today to landfilling only 20% by 2030. The strategy also includes prevention of food waste, reducing the pollution and loss of natural land and water resources embedded in food production, while lessening food insecurity. The new strategy is expected to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from waste by 47% by 2030. As another step for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, I have recently put forward a visionary government plan to generate 95% of our electricity from renewable sources, thus reducing our emissions by the least 85% by the year 2050. In addition, my ministry is currently drafting Israel's historic climate law. Moreover, as a small, densely populated country bordering deserts, we must promote efficient and innovative land use to protect biodiversity. Honorable. Okay.
We can hear you, Israel.
Yes, 1 minute, please. In addition, my ministry is currently drafting Israel's historic climate law, like I said. Moreover, as a small, densely populated country bordering deserts, we must promote efficient and innovative land use to protect biodiversity. To that end, we develop and use efficient agricultural practices such as vertical agriculture and integrated pest management. Importantly, by being efficient, we can allocate land and water for nature. For example, we integrated ecological corridors into spatial planning, reducing ecosystem fragmentation. Also, 80% of Israel's drinking water in desalined seawater and more than 86% of Israel's sewage in reclaimed. We are also promoting green industrial land use. For example, I am acting to move a large industrial area from the city of Haifa, replacing the old pollution industry with efficient green buildings, which will house innovative green technologies. I'd also like to mention an initiative my ministry is promoting, Desert Tech, which builds on Israel's extensive experience in adaptation to drylands and desert conditions. With a new peace agreement in our region, we are planning to collaborate with countries of our region and beyond, which are facing these common challenges in developing new technologies and tailor-made solutions to the challenges of desertification. We will be pleased to work with UNEP and other interested parties on this topic, which will become even more important as governments make green investment as part of COVID-19 recovery efforts. Dear friends, the environment, like the COVID crisis, knows no borders. UNEP can play a key role in bringing governments and organizations together across borders to meet our common environmental challenges. I deeply believe that we must work together for a better and more sustainable future for our shared environment, regionally and globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Portugal, you have the floor.
The COVID-19 pandemic dominated our agendas for over a year now, and it is also made clear that it is now more important than ever not to leave our environmental priorities behind. Currently, complete recovery is the major goal worldwide, but it must be achieved in line with environmental commitments and its associated goals and targets, notably on climate change and biodiversity. If we are to build back better, if we are to build a fair, green and resilient post-pandemic world, we need to embody environmental principles and concerns in our recovery plans. Although the challenge is massive, the EU and Portugal in that context are well positioned to decisively contribute to a collective recovery and a better future by delivering on the European Green Deal. Clear signs of the EU ambition are, first, the increased target for its greenhouse gas emissions reductions from 40% to at least 55% by 2030. Second, the new circular economy action plan that significantly changes the way we plan, conceive, and design our products. And third, under the biodiversity strategy for 2030, we are committed to protect at least 30% of land and sea through protected areas and other effective area-based conservation measures also by 2030. While holding the presidency of the Council of the European Union, Portugal is fully committed to match this renewed ambition with concrete actions. We are also actively delivering on the Paris Agreement. We pioneered in 2016 when we took the commitment to achieve carbon neutrality. We were the first country in the world to do so. In 2019, Portugal delivered its long-term strategy establishing the roadmap which will turn the commitment of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050 into a concrete reality. To do so, Portugal will reduce more than 85% of GHG emission compared to 2005 levels, when emissions peaked in Portugal. More recently, an ambitious, although realistic, National Energy and Climate Plan for 2030 and the National Hydrogen Strategy were adopted, focused this last one on green hydrogen. The policy framework is in place and we already have empirical results. In 2019, Portugal reduced GHG emissions by 8.7% in relation to the previous year, while our GDP annual growth was 2.2%, both above EU average. At the same time, Portugal reached 57% of renewables in electricity generation, in 2020, 59%, And we were able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 26% since 2005. So the case is made. It is possible to decouple greenhouse gas emissions from economic growth. This year, Portugal will close the last remaining coal-fired power plant, and by 2030 aims to achieve 80% of renewable energy in electricity generation. We will do so with economic benefits for individuals and for the economy as a whole. Portugal is supporting the deployment of more renewable energy power generation, mostly solar, through a very successful solar photovoltaic energy capacity auction, where we beat twice the world record on price, on 2019 and on 2020. This translates into less emissions and lower energy costs and prices for the consumers. Dear colleagues, as environmental change becomes even more urgent and complex, UNEA has a crucial role to play. Only together, in the true spirit of multilateralism, we can create political momentum and find sustainable solutions that leave no one behind. And I'm thinking on Africa when I say this. In this regard, allow me to say that Portugal is honored to organize the UN Ocean Conference, co-hosted by Portugal and Kenya, which is in this very momentum as I am, now expected to take place in the spring of 2022. As the UN Secretary General made very clear during the launch of the UNEP's Making Peace with Nature report, 2021 will be a make it or break it year. For nature, but also with several upcoming major events with critical environmental international negotiations taking place this year, particularly the conferences of the parties of the 3 Rio conventions. Portugal is ready to deliver, and these 3 COPs, they do have to have results, and they have to become very successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Now, Kenya, you have the floor.
In our environment at our own peril. She warned that nature is unforgiving. We did not listen. Humanity continued and still continues to misappropriate nature, commoditize it, and destroy it with reckless abandon. We have polluted the air we breathe, poisoned the water we drink, contaminated the soil we feed on, destroyed forest and other critical wildlife habitats. We have driven biodiversity to near extinction. We have turned once productive land into barren areas. We consume more than we need and throw away the excess as waste. The consequences of these are obvious. We are paying a heavy price for that. Now, we therefore have to atone for our sins. We have to make peace with nature. And Kenya commends the executive director of UNEP for this report, the Making Peace with Nature, which is scientific and based on science and data. I don't think there can be any more argument about our dispute about the scientific data and findings and recommendations in this report. Now, Kenya, in making peace with nature, has undertaken a number of initiatives and measures. We have a constitution that enshrines the principle of environmental sustainability, as well as the principle of intergenerational equity. In our constitution, the right to a clean and safe and healthy environment is a fundamental human right. Similarly, in our constitution, individual and corporate responsibility for environmental sustainability is enshrined. Now, just recently, Kenya submitted its updated NDCs with enhanced ambition, wherein land use, forest, and ecosystem restoration, the whole framework of nature-based solution, is critically enshrined there. Kenya has just recently finalized, launched, and submitted its 6th national CBD report, as well as the land neutrality targets. In the area of waste, Kenya has just finalized the Sustainable Waste Management Bill and policy, which mainstreams the principles of circular economy practices, as well as extended producer responsibility. We have also finalized the chemicals and hazardous waste policy. In the area of plastics, as you know, Kenya had banned single-use plastic carrier bags in 2017. Last year, we banned the use of single-use plastics in public conservation areas, including forest, parks, and public beaches. We're now finalizing the regulations to extend producer responsibility and liability, including establishment of take-back schemes. In the area of forestry, Kenya has embarked on an ambitious reforestation program, which targets to raise and plant 2 billion seedlings by 2022. We are also now embarking on serious restoration program, reclamation for water towers, wetlands, as part of our responsibility under the AFR 100 restoration target. It is therefore, in our case here, quite obvious that we do not have to make a choice between nature and development. It is not an either-or case. It is quite possible, in fact, more profitable to protect and conserve nature, as well as we make profit, we promote economic growth and development. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Uruguay, you have the floor.
Así. Señores ministros, señoras ministras autoridades del Programa de las Naciones Unidas para el Medio Ambiente, señoras y señores, es un honor para mí participar de este diálogo de líderes durante la 5ª edición de la Asamblea Ambiental de las Naciones Unidas. Aunque Uruguay cuenta con una larga tradición de institucionalidad ambiental, esta es la primera vez que mi país tiene participación a través de un Ministerio de Ambiente. Específicamente, ya que fue creado recientemente por ley en junio del año 2020. Así, el gobierno del Uruguay busca jerarquizar una vez más la gestión ambiental y su efectividad con una decidida participación en las instancias de negociación ambiental multilateral, priorizando la conservación de la calidad ambiental, del agua y de la biodiversidad, la adecuada gestión de los residuos, la mitigación y adaptación al cambio climático y la promoción de un modelo de desarrollo sostenible. La política nacional de gestión de residuos forma parte de la política ambiental nacional y es un ejemplo de acciones concretas a nivel país sobre la dimensión ambiental del desarrollo sostenible hacia la construcción de un mundo pandémico resiliente e inclusivo. Para ello, estamos comprometidos con la pronta reglamentación de la Ley de Gestión Integral de Residuos que está aprobada en Uruguay en septiembre del año 2018. Esa ley promueve la prevención y la reducción de los impactos negativos de la generación y el manejo de todos los tipos de residuos en todas sus etapas. Asimismo, reconoce la posibilidad de generar
generating value and high-level employment from this waste. This is an important turning point for the world post-pandemic in both the economic and technological divides between rich and poor, and between developing and developing countries is even larger. My country is a food producer which has a minimum greenhouse gas emissions and looks to consolidate a way of production which is natural, taking into account carbon neutrality and the sustainable use of available natural resources. Thus, the adequate differentiation between products coming from agriculture and livestock with low contributions to climate change is absolutely essential, so that those countries which we are addressing the increase of informality and the loss of employment, as well as having an unfair competitive nature. These difficulties can transform into opportunities. Therefore, we need help and support towards sustainable modalities of production. Ladies and gentlemen, Uruguay has participated actively in the multilateral environmental agenda, hosting various international meetings with agreements such as the Basel Agreement, the Stockholm Agreement, the Ramsar Agreement, and the Icazú Agreement on climate change, and the Montevideo Programme for Development and the Revision of Environmental Law, which was begun more than 40 years ago in the Uruguayan capital. Each of these versions would allow us to make advances on international environmental instruments and work towards laws and other standards throughout the world. Therefore, we have high hopes for the Montevideo 5 programme, which is currently in implementation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Excellency. I would like to invite Excellency Rodriguez of Global Environment Facility, if you have managed to connect. Mr. Rodriguez, you have the floor. We still have technical problems, so we will continue with the program. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I now have the pleasure to invite the following ministers and civil society. Excellency Marsha Benicart, United States of America. Excellency Artur Storms-Ples, Republic of Latvia. Excellency Juan Cabandier, Argentina. Excellency Ambassador Dmitry Maksimashov, Russia, and Mr. Sonam Wangchuk, Civil Society Representative, India. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you to the UNEP staff, Executive Director Inger Andersen, Deputy Executive Director Joce Msuya, and Minister Rutevatn for their commitment to the success of this gathering. Inger and Joyce, it is so lovely to be with you again, if only virtually. The Biden-Harris administration recognizes the urgency of the environmental challenges we face and has taken immediate action to tackle these interrelated issues. On his very first day in office, President Biden brought the United States back into the Paris Agreement. And as of February 19th, the United States is once again a party to the agreement that we were proudly instrumental in achieving just over 5 years ago. The President has also directed the Department of State to seek the advice and consent of the United States Senate on the ratification of the Kigali Agreement to the Montreal Protocol. If enforced worldwide, the amendment could prevent up to 0.4 degrees Celsius of warming by the end of this century. The President's Special Envoy for Climate, former Secretary of State John Kerry, has emphasized the interdependence of climate and the oceans. The Biden-Harris administration will continue to prioritize ocean conservation, including reducing marine debris and plastic pollution. The United States Congress has also demonstrated strong support for this issue by passing the Save Our Seas 2.0 Act to address marine debris and ocean plastic at home and abroad. The United States will continue to work to prevent future pandemics, in part by addressing the drivers of zoonotic disease worldwide. Key drivers include the sale of high-risk wildlife in markets, wildlife trafficking, and human encroachment into wildlife habitat. To protect natural habitat, President Biden has committed to conserving at least 30% of U.S. domestic lands and waters by 2030. The United States is also a global leader in technologies and policy to monitor and abate air pollution, the single biggest environmental risk factor to human health. We are eager to share the lessons we've learned over the last 50 years about reducing air pollution and emissions of toxic chemicals with the global community. As President Biden has said, we are in a crisis. The threats I have just described require urgent action from every state to address this global problem. The United States looks forward to working with partners and allies to overcome these challenges. Together, we can truly build a cleaner, safer, more sustainable world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Republic of Latvia, you have the floor, followed by Argentina.
Dear moderator, honorable ministers, excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Latvia fully aligns itself with a statement made by the European Union today. I would like to share some of our valuable experience and best practices that we in Latvia have carried out to promote the environmental dimension of sustainable development. Latvia sees the European Green Deal as a very important step towards climate neutrality, a fair and prosperous society with a modern, resource-efficient and competitive economy in a post-pandemic world. It is also a major step towards the implementation of Agenda 2030 and numerous other sustainable development goals. Despite stark scientific warnings, collectively we are failing to stay within our planet's ecological boundaries. The short-term decrease in emissions in 2020 that we have seen in various countries due to the COVID-19 crisis is not expected to change this outlook. Green recovery from COVID-19 crisis can, however, provide an opportunity to build more resilient, a sustainable future and advance the much-needed transition. Tackling climate change is a key priority in Latvia. We have set the 2050 climate neutrality target, and together with the EU, we have just submitted a more ambitious greenhouse gas emissions reduction target for 2030. If we talk about specific measures that we have implemented so far, I would like to highlight a successful implementation of green public procurement in Latvia. This legally binding instrument was introduced in 2017 and updated last autumn. Green public procurement in 2020 comprised almost 30% of total public procurements in Latvia. Food and catering services amounted to about 1/3 of all green public procurements. In this way, we have succeeded in promoting sustainable agriculture and, in particular, organic farming. The share of land used for organic farming is increasing every year, and this is a good sign for biodiversity as well as for sustainable consumption and production. And now I would like to introduce you the measures that we are currently working on. Latvia is now developing a new environmental policy strategy for next 7 years. It will consist of various actions so that we as a country can move towards climate neutrality and climate resilience, promote the transition to a circular economy, as well as preserve and restore ecosystems and biodiversity. Transition process can happen only by bringing everyone on board. Therefore, strengthening and encouraging public participation in the decision-making process is vitally important. Digital technologies provide new opportunities here as well. I believe that our priorities will bolster the environmental dimension of sustainable development. not only nationally, but also globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Argentina, you have the floor.
Hola.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me, Mr. Speaker?
Bueno, quiero en primer lugar
First and foremost,
felicitar
I
al
would like to
ministro de Noruega
congratulate
y a los
the Minister of
organizadores.
Norway and all the
Todos sabemos
sponsors.
que
We all know that
las consecuencias del cambio climático
consequences of climate
afectan
change
a los países más postergados, a los países
affect
pobres, a los países
the
en desarrollo
poorest countries and
y
the most
a la sociedad
developing
global.
countries and global
Pero
society.
también
But also,
creo que es un buen momento para
I feel that now is a
discutir
good
un
time
nuevo
to
paradigma,
discuss a new
un nuevo
paradigm shift,
donde podamos
where
construir una sociedad
we can build
sobre la base de un
a society
nuevo pacto,
based upon
que
a
sea un
new
pacto
pact,
social, económico,
a new social, economic
ambiental,
pact and environmental
para no
pact,
repetir los errores del pasado
so that we
que
don't
pagamos muy
repeat the
caro
mistakes from our past,
y poder cuidar la salud de
in
nuestro
order
planeta.
to take care of the
Nuestro
health
país
of our planet. Our country
ha puesto la agenda ambiental
has
en
put the
el centro
environmental
y en las
agenda
prioridades
at the
de
very
nuestras
center
políticas públicas.
and as the highest priority
Es
of our
por eso
public
que
policies, and it is
hemos
therefore
presentado una
we
nueva
have
contribución
presented a new contribution
ante la Comisión Marco de Naciones Unidas
to the
que tiene un
UNFCCC,
26%
which
de
has
mayor ambición
26% of
a la última contribución presentada por nuestro país en el
more
2016.
ambitious than the last contribution from our country.
También nosotros tenemos
Also,
una especial
we have a
preocupación
special
y
concern,
llevamos a cabo acciones en consecuencia
and we will undertake
para
actions in this
preservar
regard in order to
nuestras cuencas forestales,
conserve
nuestros bosques nativos.
forestries and
Es por
native
eso que hemos
forests.
triplicado
Therefore, we
el
have
presupuesto que le hemos
tripled
otorgado a cada
the
una de las
budget which we
provincias de
have
nuestro país
allocated to each
federal
of the provinces
para
of
la
our federal
preservación de
country
nuestros
in
bosques
order to
nativos.
preserve our
También
natural forests.
hemos
We have
conseguido
also
una donación del Fondo Verde para el Clima de 82
had
millones de
a
dólares
funding
que
from the
durante un
Green
periodo de
Climate
6 años
Fund, which over the next 6
vamos
years
a preservar, a seguir
we are going
preservando
to
nuestros bosques
preserve
nativos.
this and preserve our natural
Pero también
forestries.
quiero decir
Furthermore,
algo que nos preocupa mucho.
I'd like to underscore something which is of great
Nosotros
concern to us.
estamos en una región,
We are in
Latinoamérica,
a region of Latin
que es
America,
una región
which is a
que
region
contribuye mucho
that
a la sociedad
contributes
global.
largely to global society.
Nosotros también somos una región
We are also
con un gran
a region
endeudamiento.
which has a
Somos
lot of
países
debt.
endeudados
We are
con,
indebted countries.
con organismos de crédito internacional. Y
with
al mismo
international
tiempo
credit
nuestros
bodies.
países
Yet at the same time, our countries,
somos acreedores ambientales.
we are
Somos
environmental
acreedores
creditors
ambientales frente a esos países que nos exigen permanentemente el pago de la deuda.
against these countries which
Entonces, quiero
are making us
reflexionar
pay this
con
debt.
todos ustedes.
Therefore, I'd like to say to all
¿Cómo van a
of
hacer nuestros países
you,
para
how can our countries
implementar una nueva matriz energética de
a new
energías renovables
energy matrix,
si al mismo tiempo tenemos que
yet
pagar
at the
los
same time we
vencimientos
have
de
to
deuda?
pay our debts?
Es por eso
And
que les
therefore,
pedimos a los países
we would like to
desarrollados que
urge
ocupan
developed
importantes
countries
lugares en los organismos de crédito internacional,
who occupy important
que
roles
cuando
in the
tengan que entregar
international
un
credit
crédito
bodies, that
a
when
un
they have
país,
to
una
give
línea de crédito,
a line of credit to a
nos
country,
aseguremos, se aseguren
can
de
they
que esa
please
línea de
ensure
crédito
that this
no sea para el
credit
vicio
line
financiero,
is not
sino que sea
for
para la economía real y
that
para
to ensure this is
la
for the
economía
real,
sustentable y sostenible.
sustainable and development of our
Porque de esa
economies.
manera vamos a
Because
estar
in this
pensando y
way,
preservando
we are going
nuestro
to
ambiente
think and
para vivir bien
preserve our
y
environment
para que
in order
todos
to live well
podamos ser incluidos.
and to ensure that all of us
Lamentablemente en
are
nuestros
included.
países
Unfortunately,
hay
in our countries,
periodos de tiempo de gobernanza donde
there are
algunos que
times of
gobiernan
governance
se
whereas
endeudan. Y nosotros
others
lamentablemente
have
hoy tenemos
indebted
que asumir esa
governments,
deuda, pero
and then we
también
have to
trabajar
take on this debt
por
from
el
them,
cuidado de nuestro ambiente
but
y
to
por bajar
ensure
las
that we
emisiones y
preserve
por
our
la
economy
movilidad
and
sustentable
to ensure
y por la
sustainable
matriz
development,
energética
and for the
sustentable y
energy
para
matrix
preservar y
which is
también por
sustainable,
preservar
and also to protect and
nuestros
preserve
ecosistemas.
our
Por ejemplo,
ecosystems.
nuestros
This
bosques
has to
nativos.
change. for example,
Por
our
eso
natural
creo
forestries.
sumamente
Therefore,
necesario
I
que
strongly believe that
discutamos
it
los
is
medios de
critical
implementación.
that we discuss
¿Cuáles
the
son los
means of
medios de
implementation.
implementación?
What are
¿Cómo
these
se van a
measures of
llevar a cabo?
implementation? How are we going
¿Cómo se van a
to
distribuir?
achieve these? How is this going
Porque
to be
vuelvo a
distributed?
repetir,
Because I'd like to say once
nuestra
again
región
that
y
our
también nuestro
region
país
and our country as
somos
well,
acreedores ambientales que beneficiamos
we are
al conjunto de la sociedad
environmental
global.
creditors
Pero
who
también necesitamos
help global society.
que la distribución
However,
de
the
los recursos
distribution
sean
of
pensados para los
funds
países más pobres y los países que
should need
estamos
to
en
be
desarrollo,
thought about
para que de esa
for the
manera
most
podamos
poor
tener un
countries
mundo
and the
más
developing
justo
countries so that we have a fairer
y un mundo
world
mejor
and a
para
better
ser habitado.
world
Muchas gracias.
in which we all live. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Russia, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, it is my honor to deliver the statement of the Minister for the Environment of the Russian Federation, Mr. Kozlov. In 2020, many of our active environmental protection activities were suspended as a result of the pandemic. Unfortunately, the threats to nature have not disappeared. Russia has elaborated and implemented a national ecological project aimed at reducing air pollution in major industrial centers, improving the quality of drinking water, environmental improvement of water bodies, and the preservation of biodiversity, as well as the management of waste resulting from production and consumption. So an objective has been set of creating a comprehensive system for the efficient management of production and consumption waste. For this, we are currently having separate waste collection, and we are setting up waste treatment and recycling facilities. A very important topic is climate change. Climate and the environment should bring people together rather than divide them and not create additional trade barriers. As the latest UNEP emissions report points out, Russia is one of the leaders in terms of meeting its commitments under the Paris Agreement. Indeed, we steadily exceed our commitments. Now the government is carrying out work on setting up a carbon trading experiment system. In Russia, most of our energy is produced by natural gas. It is one of the best fossil fuels in terms of emissions. More than a third of our energy production comes from carbon-free sources: nuclear, hydroelectric, and renewable sources. Let us not forget about such a factor such as the preservation of forests. Russia makes a huge contribution to global carbon dioxide sequestration thanks to our boreal forests, the planet's lungs. For several years in a row now, a national campaign called Save the Forest has been underway in 2020. Despite the epidemic, more than 1 million volunteers joined in the campaign and 42 million trees were planted. The Russian Federation has constantly advocated a strengthening of UNEP's role as the key UN structure in setting the international environmental agenda, with a focus on strengthening the scientific component of this work. Now, mindful of the limited resources of UNEP, its work should be focused on resolving environmental crises not yet covered by any international instruments and mechanisms, as well as analyzing new environmental challenges, inter alia, the problem of the pollution of the world's oceans with plastic waste, the seriousness of which was noted by Russian President Vladimir Putin at this year's Davos Economic Forum, and this should become a promising area for UNEP's work. Here we welcome the outcome of the work of the expert group on pollution of the marine environment by microplastics and support its recommendation of launching an intergovernmental negotiation process to elaborate a new international agreement in this field under the aegis of UNEP. It is important that UNEP devotes sufficient attention to a comprehensive assessment of the impact of new technologies, the impact on the environment throughout their life cycle, including the extraction of necessary resources and the production and disposal of their various components. Now, this is especially important for developing states. All current environmental problems are a call for sustainable development, which requires that UNEP should ensure equal participation of experts from all geographical regions in the international scientific dialogue. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Mr. Wangchuk, civil society representative from India, you have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you greetings from the ecologically sensitive mountain deserts of Ladakh on the Tibetan plateau across the Indian Himalayas. We are in a very sensitive area where we are losing our glaciers very fast, which are causing droughts when we really need water, and floods, flash floods, don't need water. And in our region, we as an organization and the region of Ladakh are doing everything they can, from creating, designing artificial glaciers to freeze the winter waters for summers, to designing buildings that use only solar energy in a polar climate where the temperatures can go down to -20 or 30, but we have buildings that are solar heated and stay at +20 without any power, any pollution. And we have got many national and international awards for them. But the big but is that we are not proud of these, because we cannot fix the challenges that we face with little glaciers and solar buildings. The answer doesn't lie in the mountains. We have to change the people's behaviors in big cities like New York and New Delhi, Paris and Beijing. We need to change governments' policies and make new laws. Only then there'll be some impact and some relief for us in the mountains. But then governments, I'm impressed that many excellencies are making great decisions in their own countries, but I also understand that in democracies, leaders can only go as far as their people's maturity is. And therefore, when their policies are environmentally correct, they have to have them politically and strategically correct also for themselves to survive in the power. In my own country, our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, had the foresight and vision to declare a ban on single-use plastic. But our people were not ready for it, and he had to unfortunately pull back this ban very soon. But then in the same country, in my little region of Ladakh, we banned single-use plastic 25 years ago, 1995, when this issue was not even known in most parts of the world, not because of government laws or decrees, but because people wanted it, mainly the mothers. Women saw that their cows were dying because of these plastics, and they put a social ban which stands still effective. So therefore, we'll have to change the priorities of the people to make it easier for the governments to make relevant policies. I'm happy that towards this goal, we are partnering with organizations like UNEP India, who have a role together with civil society organizations to do exactly that, change priorities of the people so that they can approve and applaud when governments make such policies. I think this conference organized by UNEP is another example. And I think for showing that it is possible to take climate action, COVID and what happened during it must be taken as an advocacy tool. COVID has shown us that change is possible. In fact, COVID and the pandemic was the biggest climate action in the history. So I wish you all great success and kindly invest enough resources and energy in also changing the mindsets of the people so that our policies will find more acceptance. In the end, I'll urge people in the big cities to please live simply so that we in the mountains may simply live. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contributions. I now would like to invite the following ministers. If I may remind the speakers, we have a 3 minutes limit per speaker. Excellency Peter Schiffke, Canada, followed by Excellency Leah Wimelin, Denmark, Excellency Jorge Arturo Argueta Vilama, Mexico, Excellency Barna Tansos, Romania, and Excellency Teresa Ribera, Spain. Canada, you have the floor.
Vos Excellences, distingués délégués, directrice exécutive du Programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement, bonjour de la part du Canada et merci d'avoir organisé cette réunion importante aujourd'hui. Notre planète a atteint un point critique. Le PNU et la communauté scientifique nous disent que cette pandémie n'est probablement qu'un aperçu de ce qui nous attend. Nous sommes confrontés à une crise climatique, une crise de la nature et de la biodiversité, ainsi qu'une crise de la pollution et des déchets. Tout ça en raison de nos modes de consommation et de production non durable. Voici pourquoi je suis ravi que le Canada s'engage à mieux reconstruire nos sociétés pour les rendre plus inclusives, plus durables et plus résilientes suite à cette pandémie. Le Canada a récemment annoncé un plan climatique renforcé qui s'appuie sur les travaux en cours depuis 2016. Non seulement ces efforts soutiendront une reprise verte au Canada, mais nous aiderons également à dépasser notre objectif de réduction des émissions de 2030 au titre de l'accord de Paris et atteindre notre cible de carboneutralité d'ici 2050. Ces actions se baseront sur une contribution déterminée au niveau national plus ambitieuse. Nous soumettrons à la Convention cadre sur le climat avant la COP26. Nous reconnaissons également que la nature est menacée par les changements climatiques, mais qu'elle est aussi un allié essentiel dans la lutte contre ceux-ci. C'est pourquoi le Canada investit dans les solutions basées sur la nature pour protéger et restaurer les écosystèmes naturels, comme notre plan visant à planter 2 milliards d'arbres sur 10 ans. Nous avons également travaillé avec des partenaires autochtones, les gardiens des terres et des eaux depuis longtemps, pour faire passer la superficie des zones marines et côtières protégées au Canada de 1% en 2015 à près de 14% aujourd'hui. Le Canada est engagé à protéger 30% de ses terres et de ses océans d'ici 2030. Nous invitons les autres pays à s'engager également à atteindre cet objectif. En conclusion, le Canada reste déterminé à soutenir le PNUE et l'ANUE dans leur travail visant à apporter l'expertise et l'action environnementale sur la scène mondiale et à conduire le monde vers une reprise verte et une économie circulaire. Le temps est venu de reconnaître que seule une action collective peut nous permettre d'assurer un avenir équitable, bénéfique à la nature et carboneutre pour tous. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Denmark, you have the floor. Yes, very well.
So, and I would like to start by congratulating UNEP and you, Inga, on the Making Peace with Nature report. It is an impressive piece of work that definitely will serve as an important reference point for the challenges that we are facing. We must build back better and greener to overcome the 3 environmental crises that we face: biodiversity, climate, and pollution, as well as the COVID crisis. Also, to provide new and better jobs for our populations and green growth. We shall not only kickstart our national and global economy, we shall reinvent it as a truly sustainable economy. To effectively address the three crises, we need to be conscious that they are interconnected and that we need an integrated approach to solve them. We must also focus more on the driving forces behind the challenges, namely the way we produce and consume, especially the need to mainstream environment into important sectoral policies, for example, the energy and food sectors, to prevent negative effects. We also need to work together in a committed way through international agreements and to take national action to implement them. The Danish government has therefore decided on a number of new initiatives. First and foremost, we have adopted a new climate law with the commitment to cut CO2 emissions by 70% by 2030. Denmark is also committed to reaching an ambitious agreement on global biodiversity at COP15. And we are working for a global goal of 30% protected areas on land and in the oceans. At the domestic level, the Danish government has just adopted an ambitious political agreement on nature and biodiversity. We will give a financial boost to the efforts to improve nature and biodiversity. And we will strengthen large cohesive areas of nature, leaving more nature to become wilder and protect more forests. Finally, the Danish Parliament has just agreed on a range of Build Back Better and greener initiatives. They include investments in a more sustainable energy, transport, construction, and housing sector, new farming technologies, changing lower farmland into wetlands, and initiatives against coastal erosion. Furthermore, I believe we need a global instrument to prevent and combat marine litter. Together with the other Nordic countries, we have initiated political discussions on the framing of such an instrument, and we will be happy to take part in further deliberations to pave the way for an agreement on this important environmental issue at UNEP 5 in February 2022. Dear colleagues, we face an immense task tackling the three global crises. As the Making Peace with Nature report shows, they are all interlinked, and so are the solutions. Nature-based and ocean-based solutions will be key, and luckily, this is within our field of politics. The coming years will show if we are able to live up to this responsibility. We have to be ambitious and take action now. And we have to reboost multilateralism. Only together, we can deliver the solutions necessary at global scale. A true global green transition. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Mexico, you have the floor.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
¿Se escucha bien?
Can you hear me well, asks the speaker?
Yes, we can hear you, Minister.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning.
Muchas gracias.
Good afternoon.
Muy
Thank
buenos
you.
días, excelentísimo señor Rodbatten, distinguida señora Andersen,
Miss
estimadas
Andersen,
señoras, señores, ministros de Medio Ambiente, delegados y delegadas
Ministers of Environment,
ministeriales.
distinguished delegates,
Para México es
ladies
un
and gentlemen,
honor participar en
for Mexico,
esta
it is a pleasure
reunión
to
multilateral.
participate in this multilateral
La
discussion.
pandemia del
The
COVID-19
COVID-19
ha expuesto
pandemic
la fragilidad de la
has
humanidad
exposed the
y la
fragilities of humanity
interdependencia
and the interlinkages
de la humanidad con el medio ambiente.
of humanity
Y
with
ante la clara
nature,
evidencia de una
and against
sola
the clear
salud,
backdrop
un solo
of
planeta,
one health approach and one
vinculadas e
planet,
indivisibles,
linked
debemos
and
entender la
indivisible.
protección
One
y
must
la
understand
conservación
the
de los
protection and
recursos
conservation
al mismo
of
tiempo que
resources, whilst at the
reducir la
same time
pobreza,
reducing
sobre todo
poverty,
en las áreas rurales.
above all in rural and remote
Es una
areas.
oportunidad
This
histórica si
is an
logramos
historic
trazar un
opportunity
camino incluyente
if
en la
we manage to
pospandemia,
have a post-pandemic
acompañado de
inclusive
una nueva conciencia
route,
ecológica
aware of a new
hacia una
ecological
transición
conscience
ambiental
towards environmental
resiliente y baja
transition,
en
which
carbono,
is
con
resilient and
enfoque de
low
derechos
carbon
humanos y
on a
que
human
ponga
rights
al
approach,
centro
and which
del
puts at the very
bienestar
center
a las
the
comunidades más
well-being of
vulnerables.
the most vulnerable
En
communities.
América Latina, además
In
de la
Latin America,
megabiodiversidad, existen
mega
patrimonios culturales
biodiversity,
y
we have
lingüísticos
cultural
de enorme
heritage and
importancia
linguistic
en
heritage
manos
of
y
critical
territorios de los
importance
pueblos indígenas
in
y comunidades
indigenous
locales,
and local communities
que
throughout the
son,
region.
por cierto,
These
los
are, of
principales
course,
custodios de
the
la
main
conservación de la
custodians
naturaleza.
of
Por lo
nature.
que nuestra perspectiva
Therefore,
ambiental
our
debe ser
environmental
biocultural
dimension
y
should be cultural
transversalizar
and
los planes de
cross-cutting,
recuperación
and should
basados en la
include
naturaleza,
recovery-based
basados en
plans
las
based on
comunidades.
nature and
A
based upon
través de una
communities.
transición
Through this
agroecológica y agroforestal
this
y sistemas
agroforestal
mixtos y
transition and
polivalentes
mixed and
para
polyvalent
conservar
communities
produciendo
in
y
order to
producir
conserve
conservando.
and
Se
produce
trata
and
de sistemas
preserve
productivos
sustainably.
alternativos no solo para
Alternative
mitigar y
products not only
adaptarnos al
to
cambio
mitigate and
climático,
to adapt to
sino para
climate change,
producir
but also
alimentos
to
sanos,
produce
evitar
safe
la
food and
contaminación
to
de
avoid
suelo, agua y aire
soil,
y
water
fomentar
and
la
air
transición
pollution,
hacia
and to
sistemas
increase
alimentarios
the
y
transition to
agrícolas ambientalmente sostenibles.
sustainably developed
Sin
food
lugar a
systems.
dudas, esta
Undoubtedly,
conferencia multilateral
this
nos
multilateral
permitirá
discussion
definir el
which
programa de
allows us
acción
to
del
define the
decenio,
action program
delinear una
for the
gobernanza
decade to
ambiental
align
internacional más
environmental
eficiente,
governance
con
which is more
mecanismos
efficient
y
with
recursos financieros adecuados
funding
que
mechanisms
promuevan el
which are
desarrollo e
adequate in
intercambio de
order to
tecnologías
promote
limpias, accesibles y
technology
la
transfer
construcción y
and clean
fortalecimiento de
economy and
capacidades
strengthening capacity
nacionales,
building
pero
at the
también
national
regionales.
and the regional levels.
México cree firmemente
Mexico
en el
strongly
bienestar y la
believes
salud
in
de
the
las
well-being
personas
and the health of
como la
people
prioridad
as
en
an
la agenda del
absolute
desarrollo
priority
sustentable.
and for the
Considera
agenda for
también
sustainable
que
development.
los
Mexico
llamados
also
para
feels
promover metas más
that it has to
ambiciosas en la
promote more
protección de nuestro
ambitious
planeta,
targets
en
to
la lucha
protect
contra
our
el cambio
planet and to
climático
combat climate
y la
change
implementación del
and the
Acuerdo de París
implementation of the Paris
buscan
Agreement
incrementar la
in order
ambición impulsando soluciones
to
basadas
find
en la naturaleza, como
nature-based
nuestro programa
solutions
Sembrando
as
Vida
our
en 1
program
millón de
Planting
hectáreas y el programa
Lives
Conservar
and
Produciendo y
our
Producir
program
Conservando
to
en las áreas
protect
naturales
and preserve
protegidas.
in naturally protected
Nuestro
areas.
país
Our
agradece a
country would
todas y
also like to
todos
thank
el
all
esfuerzo en este
for the
compromiso
endeavours
común global
undertaken in this
en
global
beneficio de las
commitment
generaciones
in order to
presentes y
benefit
futuras.
current and future
Muchísimas
generations.
gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Romania, you have the floor.
Ministers and delegates. Please allow me to express my sincere appreciation and congratulate the UNEA presidency and the UNEP Secretariat for organizing the 5th session of the United Nations Environmental Assembly, especially in these challenging times generated by the COVID-19 pandemic, reasons for which we are meeting for the first time in this virtual format. In the given context, we are all taking note of the shortage posed by this pandemic on almost all the levels of our society, especially in the environmental field. However, we have to consider it a lesson that needs to be learned by all the members of the global community and act now to properly define the future of the coming generations. Building a resilient and inclusive post-pandemic world should focus on preserving and restoring the natural ecosystems in order to set our society on the sustainable development pathway. Therefore, an efficient response will require a common agenda from the international community oriented towards effective results to identify the most appropriate solutions, regardless of the national borders. Ladies and gentlemen, at national level, we are engaged in a process to widely promote sustainable development throughout the public policy. In this regard, Romania's Sustainable Development Strategy 2030 defines our national framework for implementing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and provides a roadmap for achieving the CDGs. Also, we have taken important steps to promote sustainability through our national strategy on climate change and economic growth based on low carbon emissions, and an accompanying action plan focused on the need to introduce economic incentives for environmentally friendly transport systems. Addressing this direction, Romania recently implemented a new integrated information system for tracking wood material called SUMAL2. This application improves the timber traceability and discouraging illegal logging. Also, we have initiated through our Environmental Fund Administration several programs addressing various areas such as reducing greenhouse gas emissions in transport and providing green public transport grants for the acquisition of the new environmentally friendly public transport vehicles. Also, we are conducting programs addressing the increase of energy efficiency and intelligent energy management in public buildings, in schools, and other buildings. Ladies and gentlemen, it is clear that committed and cooperation are key factors to obtain sustainable outcomes. However, the change we are talking about do require time longer than we can afford. In this context, I would like to conclude by saying that we are also living in one of the most demanding periods of history, from which the lesson that we have to learn is how to respect the environment while finding social and economic equilibrium, to act for nature and engaging manner at multilateral level. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Spain, you have the floor.
Spain, kindly raise your hand.
Muy bien. Pues muchas gracias por la invitación. Yo creo que vivimos un momento en el que se ha experimentado un incremento acelerado de la sensibilidad por las cuestiones ambientales, los riesgos globales, la biodiversidad, la naturaleza, algo a lo que debemos hacer frente planteándonos un momento el modelo de desarrollo que estamos impulsando. Lo hacemos también a nivel nacional. En nuestro programa de recuperación, de transformación de la economía, queremos destacar un componente verde junto con la transición digital y la cohesión social y territorial aspira a un modelo de progreso distinto, fijando por una parte el que los recursos se destinen al menos en un 40% al acelerar la transición ecológica, pero que el 100% resulte compatible con el clima y la biodiversidad. Trabajando en clima y biodiversidad, lo que significa trabajando en energías renovables, eficiencia, rehabilitación, trabajando en modelos de economía circular, nuevos materiales y utilizando la política industrial como gran palanca de transformación, trabajando también en las cuestiones que tienen que ver con restauración de ecosistemas, agua, protección de bosques, franja litoral tan sensible para la actividad económica, el progreso y las infraestructuras. Preguntan también en la nota que han mandado por el impulso político de la comunidad internacional. Creo que es hora de pensar en el modo en que facilitar que los instrumentos de cooperación internacional con esa vocación instrumental sean compatibles con los objetivos sustantivos en materia de clima y medio ambiente. Por ejemplo, qué transparencia, qué incidencia tienen nuestras reglas de mercado, nuestras reglas de comercio internacional y de qué modo impulsar los comportamientos positivos, de qué modo a través de las inversiones, de la ordenación de las finanzas,
and funding. We have to ensure 100% of financial flows are compatible with. Therefore, we need a different way of thinking that is transparent. We know that at the same time, we also need to work upon a context in which the environment, through the UNEP, is focusing policies at a global level, and we have to work upon new instruments. We're in the decade of protecting biodiversity and our oceans, but also we have to achieve targets in terms of reducing plastic and reducing atmospheric pollution. That's something which is really essential within the UNEP. And having a One Health and One Planet approach, and commitments that at least 30% of our of the earth is protected. There are some areas as well, such as global goods, such as forests and our poles,
es que sin solidaridad dentro de nuestras mismas generaciones y entre países, pensando en los que sienten la incertidumbre, el cambio de modelo, pensando en aquellos que quieren beneficiarse de la
actions and public policies which will benefit all, and we have to push towards transformational change. Thank you very much. The interpreter apologies, the sound was quite poor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. I now have the pleasure to invite the following ministers for 3 minutes intervention. Excellency Marcos Henrique Moraes Paranagua of Brazil, Excellency Leonor Gewessler of Austria, Excellency Fekadu Beene Aleka of Ethiopia, Excellency Javier Naranjo, Chile, Excellency Arlette Soudan-Nonault, Republic of Congo, and Excellency Ján Budaj, Slovakia. Brazil, you have the floor. Thank you.
Mrs. Chair, honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to extend my condolences for the loss of so many lives due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has also severely impacted our economies. Brazil is the largest mega-diverse country in the world. The Amazon forest alone occupies approximately 49% of our territory, and over 80% of its native vegetation is still conserved. Including all our biomes, 60% of our territory is covered today by native vegetation. With a population of 210 million, Brazil must implement innovative public policies to balance nature conservation and the promotion of sustainable development. Today, I share with you a few of our ambitious environmental programs. The Forest Plus program, whereby landowners are paid to conserve forests, is the largest ecosystem services payment program for native vegetation conservation in the world. The Adopt a Park program, through which companies and individuals, national or foreign, can adopt one of the 134 federal parks in the Amazon region, has a conservation target that exceeds the size of France and Spain combined. Ladies and gentlemen, we have also strengthened the partnership between the public and private sectors to promote ecotourism in national parks and forests, promoting increased conservation allied with the creation of income for the local population. Moreover, in 2020, the Zero Landfill program achieved a 17.7% reduction in the use of open dump sites. Regarding our international efforts, we are committed towards concluding an ambitious and balanced post-2020 global framework for biodiversity. Finally, Brazil's updated NDC reaffirms our commitment to reduce total net emissions of greenhouse gases to achieve climate neutrality by 2060. We do not rule out the possibility of adopting even more ambitious long-term strategies, provided that developed countries meet their financial obligations as well. In conclusion, Brazil will contribute through these programs and actions towards global efforts to strengthen actions to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brazil. Austria, you have the floor.
UNEP to the successful organization of this first ever online UNEA session. Would have loved to be in Nairobi to meet all of you in person. Nevertheless, as this is not possible, I think it's important that we use this online opportunity, that we use online tools as well to keep up the momentum for the environment. We have arrived at an enormously important crossroads for many reasons. I think never before has nature shown us its power in such a compelling way as with the COVID-19 pandemic. Never before could we feel how important nature is for our well-being and health. And if we needed to still learn it, then I think the last year has shown us very directly that there is no healthy life, there is no healthy economy on a sick planet. Never before we had such overwhelming scientific evidence on the state of the environment, and also never before we had such great opportunities to change the game. And I think this current situation and the need for economic stimulus programs are indeed an opportunity. We can and we must use these programs to leverage climate and environmental action. It's a key priority for me to get this right in Austria. Within the Austrian government, we have agreed a series of economic stimulus packages. They include a major climate investment package with an additional budget of 2 billion euro for the years 2021 and 2022, dedicated to climate-friendly investments, ranging from support for thermal insulation, a switch to renewable state-of-the-art heating systems, additional expansion of renewable energy, with our goal to be have 1 million roofs in Austria with that produce solar electricity, the expansion of affordable public transport, and for climate action at the municipal level. And this package is in addition to measures and programs that are already budgeted. It will help us to achieve our ambitious climate targets and become climate neutral already by 2040, as agreed by the Austrian government last year. We have also introduced a successful measure to incentivize private climate and environmental investment. Companies can apply for a 14% investment premium when they are investing in climate action and digitalization measures. But climate counterproductive investments, such as purchases of cars or trucks, for example, with combustion engines, are excluded from the premium. Dear colleagues, strong and effective multilateralism is the best approach to dealing with global challenges. We need to work together to overcome the multiple crises we face. Austria will continue to support our partners in the developing world. It goes without saying that we will continue to support UNEP. We already transferred our contribution to the Environment Fund for this year, and we are willing to explore further opportunities for cooperation. As a mountain country, Austria attaches great importance to sustainable mountain development. UNEP, with its Vienna office, is very well placed to respond to this challenge and to achieve this goal in support of the medium-term strategy. You can be assured of our continued support. We also support the digital transformation process in the environmental field. In this regard, let me just highlight the recent campaign Run Wild in partnership with UNEP and others. The campaign was able to mobilize 1 million runners, representing 1 million endangered species, as an important call by the global community to take strong political action in support of wildlife and act for nature. In closing, I would like to stress that UNEP, as the leading global environmental authority, is very well suited to set the global environmental agenda and promote coherent implementation. I am really looking forward to celebrating its anniversary next year. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Ethiopia, you have the floor. While we are sorting technical difficulties, I would like to invite Chile. Chile, you have the floor.
Dear President of the Fifth Session, Mr. Roderman, dear Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Program, Ms. Andersen, dear Ministers and colleagues, I am pleased to address you these words today. As we all know, regarding nature, we are challenging the boundaries of our planet. The COVID-19 has set us an additional challenge to the biodiversity loss and climate change crisis that we are facing globally. However, it also gives us a warning alert and a unique opportunity to build back better, to build back stronger. We must eradicate the myth that the protecting the environment and promoting economic growth are the opposite. Evidence are showing us the contrary. Regarding biodiversity, the World Report shows the benefit of protecting 30% of the world lands and ocean compensate the cost by 5 times. In this year, 2021, during the COP15 of the Convention on Biological Diversity, we will have an excellent opportunity to establish new and ambitious goals in the post-2020 framework. A more sustainable use of material and energy will not only reduce emission and waste, but also add an extra $2 trillion to the global economy by 2050. In Chile, in the application of the circular economy to only one sector, which is the construction field, we translate into $350 million in saving per year. In addition, circular economy can create 4.8 million of jobs only in Latin America and the Caribbean, according to the UN. In Chile, we expect to create 180,000 formal jobs in the circular economy field by 2040, as we established in our circular economy roadmap. Regarding climate change, reaching carbon neutrality brings important social, environmental, and economic benefits. According to a United Nations Environment Program report, Latin America and the Caribbean could achieve annual savings of $621 billion by 2050 if the region's energy and transport sector reach net zero emissions. In Chile, achieving this goal requires an investment of around $45 billion, but bring direct net economic benefit of more than $30 billion than multiplied by 5 when you add indirect economic benefits in people's health, thanks to the reduction of black carbon and air pollution. Furthermore, as indicated by the World Bank, reaching carbon neutrality will increase Chile GDP by 4.4% by 2050. We have committed to carbon neutrality by 2050, and it is established in our climate change framework law. We have started the phase of closing our coal power plants. We are accelerating these plans to have all of them shut down before 2040, and also working on a just transition strategy for each one of them. In addition, early in 2020, we present our new enhanced NDC with a strong ambition in mitigation and adaptation and a social pilot, which addresses our commitments aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals. As COP25 presidency, we made a call to all parties to understand the presenting ambitious NDC. It is not an unnecessary distraction from the pandemic. On the contrary, ambitious climate action is an opportunity to recover our economies in a sustainable way post-COVID-19. Updated NDC can be a blueprint for unlocking investments, support job creation, expand green sector, and help us build toward a healthy and resilient economic recovery. In Chile, we are fostering a sustainable recovery plan from COVID-19, which is called a step-by-step recovery plan. It is include an important pillar of public investment of more than $34,000 million by 2022. All the projects under this plan need to be aligned with the environment legislation framework. Also, 30% of the total public investment will be addressed to initiatives that will accelerate the transition to a sustainable development. We know that the recovery will not be an easy process, but we are sure that this is a unique opportunity to accelerate our transformation to a greener, more inclusive, sustainable, low carbon, and resilient development for our future generations. This is the right moment when the international community needs to finally react and face the different challenges we have. We can build back better in a more sustainable way to finally live in harmony with our nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chile. Republic of Congo, you have the floor.
Republic of Congo, the microphone is open. It's now or never.
Okay, I would like to invite Excellency Abba of France, because we will soon, our interpreters will stop working in 10 minutes or so, and then we'll go back to Republic of Congo. France, you have the floor.
Bonjour et merci à tous. Je suis très heureuse d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. C'est un véritable honneur pour moi de participer au nom de la France à cette première session de l'ANUE 5.1, cette session de haut niveau qui doit nous permettre, connaissant l'objectif de l'accord de Paris, de limiter d'ici la fin du siècle le réchauffement climatique à 2 degrés, voire à 1,5 degré par rapport à l'époque pré-industrielle. Cet objectif, il est loin d'être atteint. Le rythme de destruction mondiale de la biodiversité, ça tourne là, je ne sais pas pourquoi. Le rythme d'érosion de la biodiversité.
Minister, can we have just 1 minute so interpretation can come on? Sorry about that. Please go, Minister.
Merci, donc je reprends. Écoutez, c'est un honneur pour moi d'être avec vous aujourd'hui dans cette session de haut niveau, la première de l'ANUE 5, avec un objectif, celui de l'accord de Paris, de limiter à 2 degrés, voire 1,5 degré, le réchauffement climatique par rapport à l'époque pré-industrielle, un rythme de destruction mondiale de la biodiversité qui est sans précédent dans l'histoire humaine et qui provoque dès à présent des effets graves sur les peuples du monde entier. À ces crises multiples auxquelles s'ajoutent de nouveaux enjeux en 2020 avec l'émergence de cette pandémie de Covid-19, nos décisions, elles doivent désormais intégrer ces questions de santé humaine, animale et environnementale. Et nous devons absolument mettre en cohérence nos mesures de relance économique avec nos objectifs environnementaux et climatiques, car cette crise économique, cette crise sanitaire, elle a fait apparaître de manière criante cette nécessité d'une transition écologique qui soit juste et qui ne laisse personne de côté. C'est donc dans ce cadre que le plan de relance européen a mis la transition écologique au cœur de la stratégie de croissance de l'Union européenne. Nous nous sommes engagés à atteindre un nouvel objectif ambitieux de réduction de 55% des émissions de gaz à effet de serre d'ici à 2030, dans le cadre de l'accord de Paris. Et en France, ce sont 30% des fonds du plan de relance économique qui devront accompagner des investissements dans la transition écologique avec 4 secteurs prioritaires: la rénovation énergétique des bâtiments, la décarbonation des modes de transport, la transition vers une agriculture juste et durable et le déploiement des énergies vertes. Donc ce sont ainsi 30 milliards d'euros qui seront directement fléchés vers cette transition environnementale juste. Et je suis convaincue que cette action, elle doit se mener absolument avec toutes les parties prenantes, notamment avec et pour nos concitoyens. C'est pourquoi la France a convoqué une convention citoyenne avec 150 participants, 150 personnes tirées au sort pour faire des recommandations sur notre action climatique. Et ces préconisations vont donner lieu à un projet de loi qui est absolument historique et qui est sur le point d'être présenté au Parlement français dans les jours qui viennent. Donc pour le bien des futures générations, nous devons inscrire dans la durée cette relance qui soit verte et inclusive, une transition vers des modes de production et de consommation durable qui est absolument indispensable pour éviter un quelconque retour en arrière, et de même une réorientation des ressources vers l'économie verte et la protection de la biodiversité est tout à fait impérative pour accélérer sur la voie de cette transition. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Now, Slovakia, you have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, currently Slovakia is under a great yoke of the COVID pandemic. We have the highest mortality rate per million inhabitants in the world. But also during this crisis, we are getting the satisfaction to those of us who have been reminding to the next crisis that's coming, that's looming, and that is one of protecting the environment. The experience from the pandemic, in a paradoxical way, has improved our chances to explain to the broad public the need for change and to win its support for such change. The pandemic has revealed the limits of consumerism and society based on consumerism, placing us before the challenge of each one of us starting the change with ourselves. Me, as the government member, considering itself a major change government in Slovakia that has occurred in Slovakia during this period, about a year ago, we also wish to change our legislation. We have, for instance, increased the area of protected natural areas. Over only several months, 12 new territories have been extended over thousands of hectares. Our aim is to protect the biodiversity. We've introduced large beasts protection, such as brown bear and the wolf. We are going to have a year-long protection of the wolf, finally, just like the lynx, large cat. Even though Slovakia is in the middle of the Central Europe, landlocked country, we are going to have untouched territories of wildlife in our country. Slovak Republic has made a commitment and contribution to the European Green Deal and to the green economic recovery post-corona crisis of the European Union. We have issued a new low-carbon strategy by 2030 and also new climate and energy plan. In line with the EU legislation, we are drafting a new act on climate change with its long-term carbon neutrality goal by 2050. During these days, we are just completing the drafting recovery plan of Slovakia, Next Generation, which is based on response to the decrease of economy, so we do not return to economy that is harmful to the environment. This is where we are going to invest many billions of euros, and I'm convinced that Slovakia will have actually used the pandemic to move the country ahead. I'd like to also say that the UNEP over the past 50 years has become the creator and guarantor of many key environmental projects and agreements. We are learning that the right to environment and information about it must be global.
to provide information and these rights about the above subject, it is not only local governments who bear the responsibility. We as an international community must also pursue this. Currently, there are still 80% of the world population living in developing countries. Slovakia, under the 2030 agenda, is going to continue helping the weaker and poorer developing countries. That has been and continues to be our global challenge, not to leave anyone behind. Ladies and gentlemen, if we pursue this and continue communicating like this, I'm convinced that the public will be behind us and we shall have achieved change. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let me just thank our interpreters who will cease their service now for their great work today. And Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I would like to ask for your patience so we can spend a few minutes just to finish the last list of our ministers and representatives to speak. Thank you for your understanding. Ethiopia, Excellency Aleka, you have the floor. And I would like to welcome Excellency Pierre Bolland after Ethiopia of Sweden, Excellency Lee White of Gabon, Excellency Hussein Maklov of Syria, Excellency Gomond Ingi Gumbrandsson of Iceland, Excellency Vladislav Shmuz of Czech Republic, Mr. Marco Lambertini, World Wildlife Fund, and the two speakers who could not connect earlier, civil society representative Ms. Sun Lili of China, and the JEF CEO Carlos Manuel Rodriguez. Please remember the 3 minutes limit. Ethiopia, you have the floor.
Thank you. Gentlemen, on behalf of the people and the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, I would like to thank the President of the Secretariat for successfully organizing this first edition of UNEP 5, despite the daunting challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Ethiopia is currently struggling to cope up with devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Although the impacts of COVID-19 are being felt in every sector and corner, my country has made efforts this challenge into an opportunity to build capacity and capability in the health sector, and also embarked on making environmental issue a top priority as the response to preventing our crisis expensive and irreversible. As part of this endeavor, Ethiopia has finalized updating its national term contribution and also the endeavor preparing the 2050 long-term low-carbon development strategy. We are working to ensure green and clean energy generation, energy efficiency, and access from hydro and renewable sources. Moreover, we have embarked on implementing various environmental flagship initiatives in a COVID response way. The Green Legacy Initiative is worth mentioning in this regard, designed with the overarching goal of pursuing sustainable development by reducing poverty, conserving biodiversity, and promoting preventing climate change. Currently, preparation is underway to expand the initiative into the neighboring countries with a target to support planting around 1 billion seedlings in these countries. The initiative is also expected to ensure regular flow of rivers and clean water supply to improve the lives of important infrastructures such as irrigation schemes and hydroelectric power dams. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, while fighting the pandemic, Ethiopia has also launched its 10-year development plan, which was built on this homegrown economic reform agenda and the climate resilient green economy strategy. Climate smart agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, and mining are among the key priority areas envisioned to follow the recovery path. The Park, Shaggar Riverside, and the Itoto Park projects launched in and around Addis Ababa amid the pandemic also symbolize concrete actions on the recovery. National initiatives as the Gorgora, Wenchi, and the Koisha projects to be launched soon also represent Ethiopia's pathway toward this green recovery, as they laid down basic foundation for ecotourism development. The Green Legacy Initiative and these ecotourism projects are not only in line with the UN's call for the decade of action, but also uphold the environmental dimensions of sustainability. As I conclude, I would like to reiterate the unwavering commitment of my government to the implementation of all SDGs and the call upon the UNEP and the global community to stand in solidarity with Ethiopia in our endeavor of building a green and resilient economy. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Sweden, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the COVID-19 crisis has exposed the vulnerability of our modern society in many ways. The road to recovery will be long, but it also provides an opportunity to create a more sustainable and a more resilient society. Climate transition should constitute the foundation for a green recovery. The future, in our opinion, is fossil-free. Continued investments in green technology and innovation, in nature-based solutions, and in circular business models is the route that we all need to take. This has also been a priority for Sweden, and we've expanded and strengthened our government programs that support cutting-edge innovation, such as carbon-free steel production, investments in emission reductions, and also in a circular economy. We've expanded both the scope and the funding of those investment programs. Sweden, together with India, has launched LEAD IT, the Leadership Group for Industry Transition. This group gathers countries and also heavy industry who are committed to be at the forefront of the development towards becoming fossil-free by 2050. And here we welcome other countries to join in. Another issue where we must work together is the urgent global crisis of marine plastic litter and also pollution of microplastics. I really hope that by next year we can decide on the way forward towards an ambitious global agreement on plastics. In the context of building back better, Stockholm Plus 50 in June of 2022 presents a great opportunity. We envision a Stockholm Plus 50 that contributes to redefining our relationship to nature and advancing a green and inclusive recovery by accelerating the transition towards sustainable consumption and production, leaving no one behind. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, on the road towards a green recovery, UNEP's role as the leading environmental authority will be essential to continue to promote, to initiate and to communicate the latest research on zoonoses and the connection to air pollution, to climate change, and to biodiversity loss. This should be done in close coordination with other parts of the UN family, so as to increase the overall effectiveness of the efforts of the United Nations to help build back better and greener. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sweden. Gabon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, Honourable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to attend this virtual low-carbon meeting of UNEP 5, even though the context is extremely challenging. Gabon is currently experiencing its second wave, and indeed, I tested positive for COVID-19 on Friday, so I'm currently confined to my home. We are faced with not one, but three major interrelated crises. The origin of COVID-19 crisis is related to our broken relationship with nature, which is also at the origin of the extinction crisis and the climate change crisis. The biggest challenge to life on Earth is also intimately linked by the way we consume natural resources. We need to collectively adopt an ambitious integrated strategy that puts people at the heart of our decision to build back greener and better for a sustainable future. Gabon is one of the few countries that absorbs more carbon dioxide than we emit. Our total CO2 emissions are only 1/3 of the total we absorb every year. This is because we are a high forest, low deforestation HFLD country with 88% forest cover, with 21% of our land and 27% of our ocean in protected areas. We are targeting 30-30 on land and sea. We will be making a renewed commitment in our revised NDC to maintain our exceptional forest cover as a nature-based solution to climate change and to the biodiversity crisis. Part of this commitment is to use a green circular economy to put the model of Africa as a source of cheap natural resources to bed, using sustainable timber harvest and transformation of certified timber to make our whole population actors in sustainable development. We hope to do this in partnership. Developed and developing countries have complementary roles to play in these global challenges. It is only if we work together that we will succeed collectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Syria, you have the floor.
أسعد الله أوقاتكم. أصحاب المعالي والسيادة، أسعد الله أوقاتكم. يسعدني أن أشارك.
Honorable Minister, my excuses.
والذي يعقد في وقت يعاني فيه العالم من مشاكل بيئية عديدة.
We have no interpretation, with apologies.
يضاف لها ما استجد عالميا من جائحة كوفيد-19، ما استدعى الاستجابة الفورية للتصدي له، مع السعي للحفاظ على مكونات البيئة من التدهور. وأود أن أنوه لكم إلى ما عانته البيئة في سوريا خلال سنوات الحرب الإرهابية. 10 سنوات من الإساءة المتعمدة والمنظمة قامت بها مجموعات إرهابية مدعومة من بعض الدول، أثرت على الشعب السوري ومقومات حياته وبيئته ومعيشته، وطالت الأضرار المرافق الصحية والمياه ومحطات المعالجة والطاقة، وفاقمت المشاكل البيئية والحياتية. وهذا ما جعلنا نتوقع مبادرة المجتمع الدولي لتقديم الدعم والمساندة لسوريا لتجاوز تلك المشاكل، غير أننا فوجئنا بتطبيق إجراءات اقتصادية أحادية الجانب على بلادي من أمريكا والاتحاد الأوروبي لتزيد من معاناة المواطن السوري، والتي كان لها أيضا الأثر الأكبر على قدرته في الاستجابة لجائحة كوفيد-19. في كل هذه الظروف الصعبة، وقد بذلت بلادي ولا زالت جهودا للتعامل مع تداعياتها وآثارها السلبية. وعلى الرغم من الهجمة الشرسة التي تتعرض لها بلادي، فإن سوريا انطلاقا من التزامها بتوفير بيئة صحية تكفل سلامة المواطنين، فهي مستمرة في تقديم الخدمات اللازمة لذلك من خلال الخطط والاستراتيجيات الوطنية لمواجهة التلوث البيئي بكافة أشكاله، والتوسع في استخدام الطاقات المتجددة والنظيفة، ومعالجة النفايات الصلبة، والصرف الصحي، وزيادة الوعي البيئي العام، وتعزيز دور المجتمع في حماية البيئة. نؤكد على أهمية العمل الجماعي لمواجهة الأزمات البيئية، والتركيز على تبادل الخبرات والتجارب الناجحة، ودعم الجمهورية العربية السورية لوضع الخطط الوطنية لإدارة الكوارث البيئية والطبيعية والتوعية وتقديم المشورة بما يتعلق بالتخفيف من التغير المناخي والتكيف معه والاعتماد على الطاقات المتجددة ودعم تطبيق الاستراتيجيات الوطنية المتعلقة بتحسين نوعية الهواء ودعم برامج إدماج وتمكين المجتمعات المحلية من تحقيق الإصلاح البيئي. شكرا لاستماعكم.
Thank you very much, Minister. And apologies we didn't have the translation, but thank you for your contribution. Republic of Congo, you have the floor, followed by Iceland. Thank you.
You hear me?
Yes, Minister, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Monsieur le Président de la 5e Assemblée des Nations Unies pour l'environnement, Madame la Directrice exécutive du Programme des Nations Unies pour le développement, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres de l'Environnement, chers homologues, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs, la pandémie du Covid-19 nous a tous surpris, tant dans l'élan qui était le nôtre depuis quelques années dans la résolution de la crise environnementale à laquelle le monde fait face. Les difficultés économiques qu'elle a engendrées ont fortement impacté les financements en faveur de l'action environnementale. Le présent événement s'inscrit dans la droite ligne des réflexions qui doivent nous permettre de rebondir et d'agir pour ne pas perdre la bataille de la lutte contre les changements climatiques et l'érosion de la biodiversité. La République du Congo s'est engagée depuis plusieurs années dans la gestion durable de son capital naturel. Notre pays a pris en 1991 une loi portant sur la protection de l'environnement qui exige de tout porteur de projet la réalisation préalable d'une étude d'impact environnemental et social. Cette loi est en cours de révision afin d'y intégrer les nouveaux défis liés à la lutte contre les changements climatiques. En outre, des efforts importants ont été consentis par notre pays dans la gestion durable des écosystèmes forestiers, notamment par l'aménagement des concessions forestières, la certification forestière et la mise en place des aires protégées. Ainsi, l'aménagement des concessions forestières et la certification forestière ont permis à notre pays de figurer parmi les pays à fort couvert forestier et à faible taux de développement. 17 aires protégées en près de 13% du territoire national. Marine Congo.
Thank you, Minister. I think we lost the connection. I would like to invite Iceland. Iceland, you have the floor. We'll go back to Minister of Congo. I think she dropped due to technical glitch. Czech Republic, can you take the floor? Then we will try to reconnect Minister from Republic of Congo. Czech Republic, you have the floor, please.
Okay, Madam President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, joining us today online from all around the world. It's my honor to address you at this important occasion of our global virtual environmental gathering. The theme of this year's United Nations Environmental Assembly will be hopeful, not only trigger a discussion, but also actions to build a better future in this challenging time. Green recovery from this pandemic is an opportunity for all, and UNEA is very well positioned to make it happen. Let me start with the concrete action on the national level in the Czech Republic. Our government is about to finalize the recovery plan with a framework of national economic strategy focused on principles of circular economy and energy saving. Additionally, the new state environmental policy for the period 2021 to 2030 has also been recently approved by the government. The Czech Republic also continues in supporting successful programs to attract investment for green architecture and energy-efficient buildings. One of our current priorities is the strategic framework for transition to circular economy, prepared in cooperation with OECD, which creates a new long-term resilience and identifies untapped business and economic opportunities. Our country is a party to many global and regional MEAs and a donor to the GEF and other multilateral funds, attaches great importance to global, regional, as well bilateral cooperation in environmental protection. Also, a significant part of our official development assistance is continuously allocated to environmental projects. Our country was also a traditional donor to environmental funds of UNEP for many years. When it comes to the role of UNEP, our delegation has had, however, growing concerns about the issues are addressed within the remit of UNEP, meaning that discussions on the form are too often prevailing over those on the substance, risking to weaken the focus of UNEP. Our main priorities are credibility of UNEP, transparency, synergy among activities, and efficiency and effectiveness of this institution in multilateral and bilateral project so that it can contribute to build a resilient post-pandemic world. We would like to call on the Executive Director of UNEP to restore UNEP's credibility in line with the original mission set 50 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, the Czech Republic is committed to a close cooperation for a true transition to greener and more sustainable economy and society. Madam President, allow me to finish by wishing all of us good health and fruitful online session of UNEA 5 with outcomes having practical impacts on further protection of our environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Minister, Republic of Congo, you have the floor to finish your statement, and then we will go to Iceland and WWF before we close. Thank you.
Hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Minister.
Why you are not seeing me? You are seeing me?
No, please switch on your camera, but we can hear you.
Oh, it's
yes,
okay.
we can see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm finished. Le président de la République du Congo, son Excellence Monsieur Denis Sassou Nguesso, a signé en septembre 2019, avec son homologue français, le président Emmanuel Macron, la lettre d'intention avec l'Initiative pour les forêts d'Afrique centrale, CAFI. Dans cette lettre d'intention, la République du Congo exprime sa ferme volonté d'œuvrer au développement durable par la promotion de l'économie verte et de l'économie bleue et par la conservation et la gestion durable de ces écosystèmes forestiers en vue d'assurer la diversification et la croissance économique, de lutter contre la pauvreté et les changements climatiques. La lettre d'intention permet d'encadrer les activités des différents secteurs ayant un impact sur le couvert forestier, tels que le foncier, l'agriculture, la forêt, ayant un impact sur le couvert forestier, tels que l'agriculture également, les mines, les hydrocarbures, les infrastructures, etc. Le renforcement de ce dispositif environnemental est effectivement prévu dans cette lettre d'intention pour garantir la préservation de l'environnement. Mais il y a quelque chose de central, la gestion durable des tourbières de la cuvette centrale du bassin du Congo, qui s'étendent sur 145 500 km² et qui séquestrent environ 30 milliards de tonnes de carbone, l'équivalent de 15 à 20 ans de gaz d'émissions à effet de serre des États-Unis et de 3 ans de la planète entière. Et je ne cesse de le rappeler que c'est là une bombe à retardement. Cette préoccupation qui se trouve également dans le cadre du CAFI, nous allons donc porter cette problématique également à Glasgow dans le cadre de la COP 26. Notre pays a adhéré également à l'initiative BioDev 2030 qui sera lancée cette semaine à Brazzaville. Ce projet, financé par l'Agence française de développement, consiste à apporter au gouvernement de chacun des pays concernés les moyens d'identifier et d'engager conjointement avec le secteur privé et la société civile des mutations profondes dans les secteurs de l'économie ayant une incidence stratégique sur le développement et sur la biodiversité du pays. Enfin, mon pays, la République du Congo, a également lancé les travaux de révision de notre contribution déterminée au niveau national qui permettra de rehausser nos ambitions de réduction des gaz à effet de serre et de nous aligner sur les objectifs du développement durable et le genre. Pour la communauté internationale, la mise en œuvre rigoureuse de l'accord de Paris sur le climat demeure la solution à la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique. Mais je tiens à rappeler que sans la prise en compte des écosystèmes très fragiles, des tourbières du bassin du Congo, qui capturent pas moins de 30 milliards de tonnes de carbone que nous partageons avec la République démocratique du Congo, nous ne pourrons pas atteindre les objectifs de l'accord de Paris que nous avons rappelé tout à l'heure, le maintien de la température de la Terre à 2 degrés Celsius, en dessous, le réchauffement de la planète en dessous de 2 degrés Celsius. Donc, la mise en œuvre de nos engagements et différentes initiatives menées à tous les niveaux nous permettront, à n'en point douter, d'atteindre donc les objectifs du développement durable. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Iceland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Some say that a crisis also brings an opportunity, if nothing else than a lesson on how to avoid the next crisis or to deal better with it. So I ask, have you learned any lessons from the coronavirus crisis? Yes, I do think we have. First, we see the need even more now for global coordination and cooperation. The virus knows no boundaries, and we need to share information and resources to tackle it effectively. Second, we see that we can change our behavior and societies quickly in the face of an immediate danger. Just like the virus, the climate crisis doesn't know any boundaries either. The climate crisis, accompanied with a calamitous decline of biodiversity, must be our priority when we look towards a post-pandemic world. If we exceed dangerous climate tipping points, then we have decades and centuries of continuous crisis ahead of us. In Iceland, our post-COVID recovery plan includes a boost for climate mitigation, especially for clean energy, for transport and nature-based solutions, like restoration of woodlands and wetlands, as well as afforestation. We are also proposing incentives for green investments of companies. In short, the recovery needs to speed up a climate-friendly transition. What role can UNEP play in its work and medium-term strategy? A key role, I think it is fair to say. Only UNEP has the necessary global clout and oversight that is needed to tackle the various but related environmental problems we face. Our common priority is tackling climate change. Iceland aims at reaching carbon neutrality in 2040 and 55% reductions in emissions in conjunction with EU and Norway in 2030. Another priority is to get a global agreement on plastic pollution, which Iceland also strongly supports. I think we need specifically to synergize actions on climate, biodiversity, and combating desertification using nature-based solutions. And UNEP can be a major player in this regard by pushing for win-win actions in different fora. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, I want to mention faith-based initiatives. Last autumn, Iceland hosted with UNEP and others a conference entitled Faith for Nature. Faith-based organizations from all over the world have been discussing environmental issues for some time now. And I encourage us all, with the help of UNEP, to enhance this initiative, inter alia by resolution adopted by UNEA in 2020, in 1 year's time. And I kindly ask for your help in making that happen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Now, Mr. Marco Lambertini, World Wildlife Fund, you have the floor, our last speaker for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I trust you can hear me okay. And distinguished delegates, a global pandemic, record global temperatures, 1 million species at risk of extinction. We're facing a planetary emergency. There is no other way to put it. And we will only be able to address it effectively if we both recognize the interconnectedness of our climate, nature, and health crisis on one hand, but also take integrated action as a global community to transition our economic model towards sustainability. Despite this crisis, perhaps because of this crisis, many positive signs show that we are finally getting it. Nature conservation is not only an ecological and moral issue, but is also an economic, health, and equity issue. Initiatives such as the Leaders' Pledge for Nature, now endorsed by 84 heads of states and the President of the EU, and the launch of the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People are critical to build high-level, broad commitment and maintain positive momentum around the necessary ambition. Businesses and investors play also a key role in supporting political momentum, and it's exciting to see 700 CEOs from companies around the world joining a call for action to reverse nature loss through the Business for Nature Coalition, and many are prepared to adopt science-based targets for nature in their businesses. Initiatives such as the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures and the Finance for Biodiversity Pledge are also building the infrastructure necessary to secure a nature-positive economy and calling for actions from others. So in the wake of this unprecedented loss of nature on one hand, but also mobilization for sustainability, it is imperative that we capitalize on the opportunity presented this year by the COPs of the 3 Rio Conventions, the Ocean Treaty, the Food System Dialogues, as well as the emerging new legally binding agreement to combat plastic pollution that WWF, with many other civil society organizations, strongly urge governments to adopt. We are beginning to see convergence and clarity of ambition and action for climate around a clearly articulated net zero emissions global climate goal that leads to carbon neutrality by mid-century. This year, we have the opportunity to do the same, to see the same convergence around a common global goal for nature, to reverse biodiversity loss and secure a nature-positive world. A clear net zero loss for nature global goal that combined with the restoration agenda will achieve a net positive results by 2030 is the goal that we need to align governments, business, consumers, has to be our North Star Southern Cross that drives our ambition and our action in moving forward. When we refer to resetting our broken relationship with nature, it means to halt and reverse today's accelerating nature loss by 2030. That's what it is. And only in this way we can meet the challenge to transition to an equitable, nature positive, and carbon neutral, and perhaps more importantly, a safer world for us and all life on Earth. Full of excitement and optimism for the outcome of this year, super year for nature and sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegates, excellencies. We have reached the end of this first session of the Leadership Dialogue. I would like to thank all of our distinguished ministers, delegates, for your time, for sharing your ideas, initiatives, and ambitions in this Leadership Dialogue. My deepest thanks on behalf of UNEP for your leadership and commitment in leading and implementing concrete actions which to contribute to a resilient post-pandemic world. I would also like to thank you for your patience, for your understanding, including when we faced technological challenges, and for allowing us to complete this session half an hour, a little bit more than half an hour than scheduled time. It is very clear the key to reduce threats to human health and well-being for all is to reverse the environmental decline and to keep the planet healthy. This can be done by strong commitments and actions by all stakeholders, by you as leaders, as demonstrated by inspiring examples and ideas that you have shared in this discussion. So many thanks. And I would like to invite the Secretariat, Ulf, to give a small announcement regarding tomorrow's arrangement. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Madam. This is just a kind reminder that the second leadership dialogue will start tomorrow at 11 o'clock Nairobi time. And we encourage delegations to link up early, to check connections, and making sure that the session will run smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ministers, and this session is now adjourned. Thank you all.